Hi, my name is Robert Boteo, and I wanted to give a shout out to the Valley Percussion Festival, formerly known as the Valley Day of Percussion. It's an honor for me to talk to you about the history of this event. I started this event in the 1990s, and the reason why I started is because I was a percussion teacher, and I took all of my percussionists from high school to junior high to beginners. I took them all on a bus. And we went up to Austin, Texas, and I went to go visit my former teacher, George Frock, at the University of Texas. They were having a Texas PAS Texas PAS Day of Percussion. And at that Day of Percussion, there was people like Tom Ongst, Michael Burritt, Lamar Burkhalter, and Greg Mizanet, just to name a few. My kids had a great time, and it was awesome that my boss, Arturo Valdez, was able to invest in my kids to go up there and see this event. My kids got so much from it, and they were so excited. So on the way back home, I started thinking to myself, why can't I bring an event like this to the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas? So thus, the Day of Percussion was born, and we've had the best percussionists in the world. I think we've affected thousands of students and teachers, and they've seen just awesome events. Now, this event would not be possible without the support of all the band directors in the Rio Grande Valley and in South Texas. And it would not be possible without Jim Melhart and Melhart's Music Center. It wouldn't be possible for somebody that motivating me to do this like Lauren Vogel Weiss. But with all these teachers and band directors helping me, it has come to the event that it is today. And I'm so happy that Gilbert Garcia is handling this tradition, and now we're bringing this event to the world. Again, a great shout out. Keep it up. And one more thing I want to say is it's so awesome that we can have a percussion hang and keep percussion strong even in the midst of a world pandemic. Keep it going, guys. Take care.
Hi everyone, this is Jeff Queen. I'm a 4-time World Championship snare drummer and an original cast member of the Broadway show Blast. Gilbert Garcia asked me to put a little video together explaining what percussion means to me. And I've got to say, playing drums, playing music is pretty much everything to me. I would not be where I am today in my life if it wasn't for my love for drums and percussion. Started playing drums when I was about 10, got into marching band when I was 14, got into drum corps when I was 16, and to this day, I'm still involved in the activity as a consultant or as a teacher, and still have a passion for playing drums. So everybody that's in my life that's not my blood family is a result of really being involved in drum corps or being involved in music. I met some amazing people along the way, some friends that I still hold dear to my heart in this day. My wife I met because of doing drum corps and performing. And like I said, pretty much everybody and almost everything that I have in my life is a result of my passion for playing drums. So I share this with you because regardless of what you want to do in your life, you're embarking on a journey by playing percussion, playing music that can stay with you for the rest of your life, and you can make a lot of great friends in the process. So what's cool is that everybody's like-minded. Everybody wants to play. Everybody's into the music, so you can share a lot through playing drums and playing music. So I urge you to stick with it. I urge you to take advantage of the events that are around you, like the Valley Percussion Festival. And I urge you to be curious and to continue to learn about the craft of music and playing drums. Best of luck to you, and happy drumming.
Hey everyone, Jeff Mulvihill here from Sonar Drums, Mapex Drums, and Majestic Percussion. Shout out to everyone at the Valley Percussion Festival. Follow on socials, Valley Percussion Festival, for an exciting, inspiring list of virtual events coming up beginning on May 8th. There's really a wide range of inspiring talent ready to share some drumming, share some music, share some education, share some inspiration with all of you. And I can't say enough about Gilbert Garcia for organizing this event. as a tool for you guys to really make some progress on your percussion journey. 2020 was extremely challenging for all of us, and I know we're all looking for ways to stay inspired and stay progressing in our music making. So please check out the Valley Percussion Festival. I'm Jeff Mulvihill. Good luck in 2021, everyone. Stay healthy.
Beautiful performance by Eastman Percussion Ensemble and University of North Texas Percussion Ensemble. Amazing. Definitely set the tone right for what's coming up next. And what is coming up next, guys, is mayhem. I guess that's the only word I can think of. It's pedal to the metal, full stretch to the end. Guys, it's about to get pretty stout. And it already has been, but it's about to take a big crescendo. And I don't I don't I couldn't think of a better individual, a better person to really kick off this final stretch of VPF, final day 3, afternoon segment. Um, this gentleman needs no introduction. Here we go. How are you doing, my friend?
Hey, good afternoon. Nice to see you, Gilbert. It's an honor to be here performing in your festival. And it's so cool to see that it can go off without a hitch here virtually in the midst of a global pandemic. So it's really cool.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it just got cooler. Now it's a party because you're here, my friend.
Thanks so much. Thanks for the invitation.
Roger, you've been in the past in our event in person, right? A couple of times, am I correct? Maybe once, twice?
I might be just once. I think
Okay.
it was just a one time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well then we're definitely due for another one because South Texas loves you, man. They consider you one of their own.
All right. Yeah, I always love heading down into that area. There's so many great students and great percussion programs, and I always feel like I'm treated like royalty when I go down there. So it's always a pleasure.
Well, you are, sir. Yes. Well, we're excited to have you here, and like I said, Roger, there's no better individual that I could think of to start off this final stretch of mayhem that is ensuing, that is
Right.
coming.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm checking the bill, and you got some. Looking forward to seeing some of the masters you have coming up.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, I think people don't want to see me; they want to see you. They want to learn from you, sir. So, Roger, have at it, my friend.
All right, you got it. All right, everybody. So again, this is Roger Carter. I'm here to drum with you today. I mostly want to talk about skills that you would need to develop for making a drum line, whether that's your high school drum line, college line, drum corps, indoor line. With respect to the battery. Right. So we're going to specifically talk mostly about the drums. And let's just get right into it. It's only have about an hour. So it really starts with, I think, your approach to percussion and music, and I use that word specifically, music, rather than just thinking about playing beats. I find that a lot of less experienced players might think it's just all about how fast you play, how many stick tricks you can do, how much flash you have, and all that. That's great. That's certainly icing on the cake, but you need to have the cake before you put the icing on it, to use a silly analogy. But right, so playing in time, I think these days is more important than ever, because what is playing clean? In drum lines, we talk about playing clean, right? It needs to be clean. Can't be dirty. It needs to be clean. What does that mean, right? Well, to me, playing clean is the process by which every member of the ensemble plays their rhythms accurately and in tempo, right? So more than, I think, decades ago, it might have been, even when I was marching in the 90s, might have been more about listening in and trying to match with the center of the line. and I think a little bit more today, at least in my ensembles, it's about each individual person being perfect, right? That's the goal anyway. Everyone playing with great sound quality, rhythmic accuracy, dynamic contrast, and tempo control, and really being able to execute on that level. All right, so think of it as every member in the, let's just use a snare line for example. So it's usually the biggest section in a battery. We typically have 8, 9 snares in a full size line. I want to be able to at any time imagine if I have a mixer like I have here back behind this analog old school mixer. Imagine each one of those faders is a member of the snare line. We have all 9 of them, pushed all the way up. And I want to, at any one moment, I want to be able to cut all of the faders except for one and be able to have nothing sound any different other than the volume will be less, right? So we want everybody to kind of play like they're the only one there. Everybody plays in time. It's like, to use a 9-person snare line as an example, 9 soloists that are confident and strong enough to carry the rhythm and the music on their own. And then we just add their partners in and we get a nice balanced sound all the way across the line. So individual accountability and responsibility, I think, is super important. And a way to make sure that you're able to uphold your end of that bargain is by making sure you're strong and solid on your fundamentals. So let's talk about a few things we would want to play. All right. So first of all, you're going to want one of these or an app, something that's going to click for you. And it's going to be able to give you, I have one over here now, so I'm going to use this one here. So let's say we're going to play the number one exercise, not necessarily number one in terms of importance, but usually the first thing most lines play. What would that be? Well, if you said 8 on a hand, yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Most lines play something like this to start. All right, so real simple. But basically, it's an opportunity to warm up your hands. Play something that's not too technically demanding, but you're still holding yourself to a real high accountability in terms of playing in time, keeping the evenness of the right and left hands. I want to make sure I have a nice stick position, so I want to hold those beads right in the middle of the drum or pad. In this case, this is kind of a hybrid pad and drum, sort of the same thing. And I want to make sure that I have a nice grip where I'm not squeezing the sticks too hard, but again, I'm not letting them fly either. So I want to, it's kind of a delicate balance of how hard do I squeeze the stick and, how much do I let go? And that really depends on what we're playing. And what I just played there is 8 on a hand. It's kind of a legato exercise, right? So after I play, I'm allowing the stick to bounce all the way back up in the air, right? As opposed to, let's say I played this with the staccato approach, which I don't really recommend doing for an exercise like that, where I would freeze the stick down. I wouldn't play 8 on a hand like that. So you want to kind of create a flow and a forward motion and almost like bouncing a ball on the ground, and it's going to it's going to bounce right off the head and come back up to where it started, and then I'm going to do it again. Right? So 8 on a hand, 8/8/16 is the one I just played. Various tempo. And then using a metronome is super important. You don't want to, that being said, you don't want to be beholden to the metronome 100% of the time. We don't want it to be the the master, right? The metronome is a tool, and you are the master of your sticks and your drum and your sound, right? So you only want to use the metronome instead of following the met or chasing the click. I've heard it referred to. You want to try to play right in time and have that metronome almost just like it just kind of reminds you where the tempo is. And that sort of brings me to another strategy I like to use. And that, again, let's say I was playing at 110 earlier. Well, what if we put the metronome at 55, which would be half of 110? But now I'm not going to play half of the tempo. I'm still going to play at 110, but now the metronome is only clicking every other time. So that sort of allows you more space in between each click or reminder of the tempo, for you to be responsible for the tempo. All right. So that's a great strategy, is to sort of cut the tempo in half. Helps if you use even numbers, because now I'm at 55 and it's kind of hard to go halfway between that with an odd number. So let's just say if I was at, let's say we were at 80 now, right? So, or I was 160. But then if I took it down to 40, then I'd have whole notes basically. So it's a really good idea to use the metronome in kind of creative ways and not always have it define the downbeat of each quarter note, but try to use it to define the half notes or the whole note, or get creative with it and have it do a dotted quarter note or something that's maybe a little more syncopated and over the bar line. All right, so legato strokes, super important. Let's talk about double strokes. Most lines will play something like, maybe this is kind of a classic pattern. All right, well, we're going to work on double strokes. We're going to try to get 2 notes for the price of 1, so to speak. We want to try to have 2 notes come across with both the same intensity as much as you can get it. Sometimes what happens is the second note sort of diminishes or gets softer. We don't want that to happen, right? So we want to phrase through the rhythm. In this case, just a rhythm of 2 notes, ba-ba, 1 E. But effectively, I almost want to think of that second note as being louder than the first. And in truth, it should be the same, but it kind of feels like you push towards the end of the rhythm. Da-da, 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 da-da. All right, so let's put a met on. And let's think of 16th notes. Okay, so my metronome right now is at 96 quarter notes, so 96 BPM. And internally, before I play this exercise, I'm trying to think about this rhythm here. I'm trying not, I'm only doing it audibly so you can hear, but you want to think about that internally, so not audibly. And then you're going to envision what that's going to sound like. All right, pretty classic pattern there. Sometimes people play a longer version after that. And that's a pretty good one. Short, short, long, short, short, long. Basically, one measure of 4/4, playing that hemiola, that 2-note grouping. 1 E, a 2 and E and 4 and 1 E, a 2 and E and 4 and. Then we're going to do 2 measures. 1 E, a 2 and E and 4 E, a 1 and E and 3 E, a 4 and 1. Yeah, I really want to think about those notes in time And don't just think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We want to think about how that relates to the downbeat. All right. And you might hear my feet here. I have a little pedal setup going on. That is my way to, while seated, kind of mimic the act of marking time, because that's another super crucial skill for any marching percussionist, because it's right there in the name, marching, right? So when we're playing rudimental percussion, marching drumming, we move, right? We wear the drum on our body, and we need to move across the field or the court or the floor or wherever we are, or down the street if we're a parade or something. And we want everybody's feet to be in time, and not just for the uniformity of it, which is important. Certainly we want everybody to look the same and be in time, but that's just it. Being in time is what really matters. So if everybody's in time and feeling the beat appropriately, their feet will be together, right? So you want to think of it from the term in terms of that, keeping time and making sure you're internalizing that pulse, and then you're moving your feet to that, right? And so we're going to keep our feet in time and be able to play that exercise. Ready, and all right. And then notice how I kept my sticks in playing position the whole time. And I try not to let them drift away, right? So some beginners you see kind of do things like this, or they'll let their stick drift in and out. We want to try to hold that nice stick position with the beads right there in the middle of the drum when it's not playing. All right, so let's crank up the tempo here. Play a little faster. This is 140. 1, 2, ready, go. And again, we can play that with halftime met, whole note met, you know. All right, so double strokes. That's a great exercise to build your double stroke skill. You can't play double strokes without talking about triple strokes, or maybe I guess you could, but that's another biggie, right? We want to be able to play 3 notes in a row. Right, and we want to try to make all 3 notes have similar, if not exactly the same volume level. You know, and you'll hear when you watch me play it, I know that first note is a little bit higher than the other 2. I find that's just a little more natural. I remember I've had instructors in the past that said they have to be exactly the same. And while that sounds great on paper and in theory, I find it to be kind of unnatural if I'm trying to go. To me, that's not as, doesn't work as well as this. So, you know, others may disagree with me, but I think generally that first note is going to be a little higher than the other 2, you know, because it just doesn't feel right to me to try to play it all 100% exactly the same. So it's going to be, that's sometimes you might hear the phrase natural decay when we're talking about playing a rudimental percussion. And that's kind of what most people mean by that, is that the heights of the stick will slightly decay as we go through that rhythm. But we don't want to decay a lot, right? So what we don't want is, unless we're going for that for some musical purpose. But that's the thing, is we want it to be purposeful and not out of our control, right? So we want to try to make sure that we're making the rhythms happen, and everything is a conscious decision, not just happenstance. All right. And of course, we could do 4s, 4 in a row. Right. Again, try to play all the way through the rhythm, and don't let it decay too much. All right. So that's kind of multi beats on one hand. Sure, you could do 5 or 6 or whatever. But I'm just going to stop right there at 4. And let's talk about some more things. So up until this point, kind of everything I've talked about has been full-bodied, right? And everything is loud or soft, but all the same. All right, so let's talk about multiple volume levels within a passage. I suppose one of the most fundamental skills for playing in a drum line is the ability to do. Earlier, when I talked about a legato stroke, right, or when it bounces back, we want to also be able to play a downstroke or a staccato stroke. We want to be able to freeze the stick down, right? So I'm not going to buzz it unless I intend to. I'm not going for that right now. I want to try to stop the stick basically where it began. So now I'm in a position to play a soft note, a tap, right? So I generally call this bucks when you play. So when you're looking to put together a basic exercise, maybe it's the beginning of the season and you're just playing things for the first time, and you're an instructor, maybe it's your first gig. You can start with your 8 on a hand like I did earlier. All right, we're playing. This is probably a little too fast for a beginner, but let's just say we're at the ability to play at 90 here. 8 on a hand. Well, let's do that same exercise now, but with bucks or accent tap. I'll even do the 16. So I may drift a little on top of the pulse there right at the end. We want to make sure we keep that consistent. All right, so that's a fundamental skill set, accent and tap. Make sure you can play that on the upbeats too. Here's a good one, is to play it on the downbeat for 4 counts or 1 measure, and on the upbeat for 1 measure. Real simple exercise, but that kind of skill, you might be surprised. Some beginning players have a lot of difficulty playing that, and then compound that with keeping your feet in time. That ends up being a tough challenge for a beginning player. So notice I have the metronome off now, and you're just listening to my feet and hands. All right, and try to get that tempo up. All right, and notice I try to get my sticks to go straight up in the air. I even angled the camera so that it's pointing right at my left hand. And I'm sure you're going to catch me slicing here a little bit in there. All right, we want to try to make sure that it comes straight up as much as possible, and we want to avoid any kind of angling if we can help it. That being said, you'll probably catch me doing it here because I think we're all students of the drum as long as we play, right? No, very few percussionists and drummers, I think, get to a point where they know it all. I can play anything and I never make a mistake, right? That's pretty rare. So everybody usually is on a quest to improve, even if you're you've been playing for decades. And so you're trying to always take it to another level and try not to be satisfied or complacent with your skills, but there's always another level you can take it towards, take it to. And I think that's an important philosophy for becoming the best player you can be. Oh, cool. Right. So accented tap. Why are we doing this stuff? Certainly we might play some music that asks for that, but combining that with both hands, let's say I do this on one hand, and then I just fill in the left hand with the E's and U's, right? This is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right, so I can play even 16th notes with an accent on the downbeat. And let's get into the grid. All right, real fundamental pattern that I would recommend to kind of anybody, even if you're not a marching percussionist, but really any kind of drummer. I think being able to think of 16th notes, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and be able to move the accent on the different parts of the beat or the different subdivisions. Real common one would be the 16th note accent grid. Let's say we're going to play 4 accents on the downbeats, 4 on the E, 4 on the and, 4 on the and then we'll return to the downbeat again. All the while, I'm trying to maintain nice stick position, consistent tempo, and definition between my loud notes and my soft notes, right? I don't want to play. I want to play. All right, so we're going to try to keep our notes down here at piano and our accents wherever we decide. In this case, let's say we're going to play at forte. All right, so I'm going to play 4 measures of the 16th note accent grid. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1, 2, ready, go. All right, so that skill right there is fundamental. That's a skill you're going to want to be able to master to play in any drum line, as well as keeping your feet in time, right? So when we're playing this, it's kind of obvious, right? The feet go right with the accents. But we don't want to now slow the feet down to line up with the accents when they're on the E. Sometimes I see some beginners doing that. And if you're challenging yourself and you're doing that on purpose, I'm going to grid the feet as well. Okay, cool. That's great. But typically, we want to try to keep the feet on the downbeats and move the accents around on the hands like this. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. All right, and you could get into that with more patterns like 4, 2, 1, which is when I'm going to play 4 of everything like I just did, and then we'll play 2 of everything. Maybe do that one twice in a row. All right, and then maybe play it once in a row. 1 E and a 2. So we go 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. All right, so you play all that together. You have the 4, 2, 1 16th note accent grid. I first learned this from influences by a gentleman named Tom Float, who was with the Concord Blue Devils, back in the 80s, and Velvet Knights after that, and before that, I think he was with Spirit of Atlanta, and a real legendary percussion instructor and marching god of marching drums, if you will. Hugely influential to the entire activity and myself. So I learned that from him, Tom Float, 16th note accent grid, 4, 2, 1. All right, and then you could spice it up too. What if we put oops, watch my sticks there. What if I put some embellishments on that? I'm gonna just put the flam on the downbeat, right? Of course, flam is when we do this here. All right, we play a secondary, a grace note and a primary note. Right, so we want to have that That's kind of a more rudimental type of flam. Although not to say that you couldn't play it this way too. I play that on a drum set more frequently. I'm gonna play it like that. But typically for a more rudimental or strict application, we want to try to keep our grace notes really low. So let's say I play that 16th note accent grid, but now I'm going to flam all those accents. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Yeah. Oh, Brad. Yeah. Can you remove the comment from the screen? Can't see his grace notes. My grace notes are so low. Yeah, you'll see them coming up too a little bit from here time to time. And I'm trying to avoid that, right? I'm trying to keep them low. If you've ever seen that Dennis DeLucia vid about screaming at you for not raising your grace notes, it's kind of a funny vid. But we want to try to leave them real low and don't lift them any more than necessary. And in the heat of the moment, you might see me pick it up a little bit. Oh yeah, look at me lifting those grace notes. I want to try to make them as low as I can. All right. Let's stick with that grid for a little bit more because I think it's so useful. How about a double stroke? We talked about these earlier, doing that. What about putting a diddle, double stroke or a diddle, in the midst of an exercise like that? All right, so we could diddle those accents. What if though maybe we diddle the note after the accent and we get a rudiment called the lesson 25? Right, we have accent, diddle, tap, tap. And then when I get to the E accents, I'm going to just put that diddle after the accents on E. So now that diddle is going to be on the and. And now I'm going to put the accent on the and the diddle is going to be on the All right, and now the accent is on the so the diddle is going to be on the downbeat. I usually don't play the first one. I put it on the second one. All right, so I'd have, let's play that a little slower. 1, 2, lesson 25. Cool. Or what if I diddle all of the notes that aren't accents and I just have a long roll basically, and I'm going to move those accents around, substituting diddles for when the notes aren't accented, and when they are accented, I'm going to leave it a single. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so we're kind of playing 7-stroke rolls there. All right, we want to work those skills up. Notice I'm trying to keep all my diddles at a low level. Trying to keep them down here. So that comes across as a lot louder. Not to say that you wouldn't ever play it all one volume, because you would. You could also play it. Or maybe all soft. All right. So the point is that You want to maximize contrast. All right, my louds and softs, I want to maximize those, because compared to some other instruments, we're kind of limited on the drum. Right? I don't have a harmonic content with the snare drum. I can't play chords. I can't sustain a note like a wind instrument could. I can't just hold it out. So the drumming, you hit the drum and that's it. I mean, sure, if you talk about timpani, it has a lot more sustain and such. But again, we're talking about just rudimental percussion, and it's basically on and off. So if I don't play with dynamic content either, it just gets really monotonous and kind of fatiguing to the ear after a while. So maximizing your louds and your softs, your forte to your piano, is crucial for developing good sound quality and your ability to make a drum line. Because that's the kind of thing I'm going to be looking for when I'm auditioning someone at, let's say, the Blue Coats Drum Corps, for example, or Broken City, where I'm the snare instructor. Those are some of the skills I'm going to be looking for, is your ability to separate your loud notes and your not loud notes, your fortes and your pianos, and all the notes in between, and not making it all the same, right? So keep those taps, non-accented notes, keep those down. You could do the grid exercise in a triplet form as well, too. I think it's super helpful. So up to this point, I've been talking about 16th notes. 1 E, 2 E, 3 E, 4 E, and a. Let's turn off that subdivision. Let's take the tempo up a little bit. Now I'm at 104. And think about now a subdivision of 3 notes per beat. All right, we have 8th note triplets. We can do the grid in that format as well, too. So instead of 4 different notes, 1 E and a, 1 E and a, 1 E and a, 1 E and a, triplets, we have 3 notes, right? We're going to think about 1 or triplet or 1 triplet, however you want to count it. I know there's a couple different ways to do it. Let's just use triplet for right now. Triplet. And then we're going to have triplet and then triplet. Or let's say one triplet, 1 triplet, 1 triplet, 1 triplet. We want to think about those 3 partials and be able to put accents on the 3 different sections or subdivisions of the beat. First bar, I think, is the most obvious one. But now thinking about moving the accent to the second note. All right, beat is here. If you can just live there on the second partial without being drawn back to the click, that's sort of a typical mistake too, is we have a hard time staying subdivided like that, or offset, or displaced. So the grid in triplet form would be 2, 3, 4. All right, and we can play that a lot faster. Here's 150. All right, we could do the same 4-2-1 approach, 2 of everything. What I did there, I just did 2 counts of downbeat, 2 counts of second partial, 2 counts of third partial. Repeat. Downbeat, second partial, third partial. Downbeat, second partial, third partial. James Harrison, do you try to keep a small amount of arm movement going through your taps to make getting into diddles easier? Yes. No, it's certainly situationally dependent. If I was playing, I probably wouldn't use very much arm at all. But as it gets faster, yeah, I use a little bit of arm. But that's a good segue for me here, because I wanted to talk about what at least my interpretation, and I am not the authority for the world. But my interpretation of using a molar technique, when I start to get faster, if I don't use much arm, I'm going to stop about here. This is as fast as I can go. But if I allow myself to use more arm, I get a lot faster. And using a more finger too. So whereas my component of the grid there was doing this, as I go faster, I start to play my taps a little higher, my accents a little lower, and I'm able to go a little faster than I would be able to with a more conventional technique. All right, so that's sort of the interpretation that I use for molar technique. So yeah, James, to answer your question, yes, I do try to use a small amount of arm movement through the taps, but you want to make sure that it's not a ton, right? We're not looking for what's my recommendation for starting tempo for these exercises? I think that depends on the skill level of the individual. If we're talking about brand new, middle school or high school kids that have never played percussion before, pretty slow. Let's go back to that 16th note grid. I would say maybe like 80, maybe. That might even be a little fast, That's 8 quarter note equals 80. Maybe a little slower than that, but you have to evaluate based on the skill level. And I think that's what makes a good instructor too, is your ability to connect with the individual that you're teaching and ascertain how they're doing on it. Are they struggling on it? Okay, maybe it's a little too fast. Are they having no problem at all? And it's kind of like, oh, I'm bored. Okay, let's crank it up a little bit. So you have to kind of tailor what you're asking them to do based on how hard it is for them, right? But we're going to want to get those a lot faster. So for a more advanced player, I want to see that at 140. Or triplets. Now we only have 3 subdivisions per beat, so we're going to talk. I want to see that at 180. But for a beginner, we probably want that more like 90, if that. And now that's not to say that slow is only beginners play slow and advanced players only play fast. Far from it, in fact. You want to have a wide range of dynamic, or rather tempo, as well as dynamics. So your skill level, I sometimes call that the comfort zone. The comfort zone for me, for when I play triplets, is probably around 130. It's like, okay, I could do this all day, no problem. But some players, their comfort zone is really narrow. I could play it from 120 to 124, and that's it. We want to have a wide range of tempo that we're comfortable at. So you always want to try to be pushing the boundaries. I want to be able to play it really slow. And I'm going to put my as slow as it'll go. 30. I want to try to find that. Oh, I'm slow. All right. So that was harder for me at playing it at 30 than it was at 160. To be able to control all that space. So don't just think that slow tempos are for beginners and then you graduate to faster tempos and then See you later, slow tempo. I'm never going to touch you again. Certainly not. You want to be able to have a wide range of tempo, what you're comfortable at. But so let me get back into that molar thing. So maybe to answer that tempo question on that. To me, it doesn't make much sense to play that technique at a really slow tempo. It's good here. This is 90. But if I was going to play this down at, 60, it's getting to the point where it's kind of too slow for that. And I would probably play a more conventional technique where I would use that molar technique, at least, again, my interpretation of it. I'm sure there's individuals out there that will say, that's not the true molar, that's something else. Okay, you're probably right. That's just the way I kind of utilize that flow, forearm incorporated stroke. This is 120. It's a great exercise. You do 16 on each hand. 13, 14, 15, 16. Now both. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now I'm going to offset it. Now I'm going to alternate the accents. That's it. So let's try that again. We'll go to 16 on the right. 1, 5, 9, 13, 15, 16. Left. Trying to make my stick go straight up and down as much as possible. Now I'm going to do double stops. Try not to flam. Have them play at the same time if you can. Offset the accents and the hands. Real simple structure, but that tempo, might be hard for a lot of players. Or maybe it's not. Maybe you want to play faster. Maybe you want to play that at 140. But the point is, I try to stay relaxed. I'm trying not to hold tension in my shoulders and my forearms. So that's a really good one. That's a molar exercise, at least a marching interpretation of it. Real simple. And then at the Blue Coats, we do one, and Broken City lately. We've done one that I wrote called Molar Modulations that was kind of based on a pattern that I saw Thomas Lang do on his video Creative Control many years ago, and where he was playing on this practice pad drum set, and he was playing 30-second notes, which was cool. But then he'd do a 9-lit and do 9 notes in 1 quarter note. So we're doing 8 notes in a quarter note and then did 9. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. I really identified with the way he was playing that. Right, and so I kind of expanded on that, stole his idea essentially. I met him years ago at a clinic, and actually told him that. I was like, your exercise was great, and I made this other thing called Molar Modulations based on this, and we played it together in a clinic. It was really cool. You could offset the accents a 3rd time too. Brad, what exercise are you talking about? This one? And then, is that what you're talking about? 3rd time. I mean, you could do it on the 2nd and 3rd partial, right? So like, let's say I'm going to go, yeah, and then I could go to the second partial. And the third partial. Right, so that's kind of the grid exercise that I was talking about earlier, just faster. All right, so let's say we do just the grid, but fast. Basically, I'm just moving the accents amongst the three partials of the triplet and doing it on the first note, the second note, and the third note. But just staying on that second partial is pretty hard, right? This is the easiest to keep it on the downbeat. But let's say I try to go to the second partial. Or third partial. Yes, right. So definitely, yeah, you could do that way. I think there's a lot of third left accent, right, left, right, left, right, left. Sure. Yeah, right. So yeah, what I did was first two, and then I did every other. And then, yeah, you could definitely do the first and sixth. Yeah, so I'd say that's probably the other one that would involve 2 accents per 6 notes. I mean, I guess we could go. Or we could go. All right, there's a lot of combinations, but yeah, that's a good one. So nice, Brad, definitely. All right. And then we can embellish that, right? We can put some, let's slow it down, and then let's put, to use Brad's idea, the accent on the one, or the first one, and then accent on the 6th one. But what if we put double strokes on the non-accented notes? Right, so that would be a rudiment, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, that's a 10-stroke roll. You could do that without the diddle and with. Without, with. Without, with. Without, with. Without, with. Yeah, for sure. So those are some of the skills that I'm going to be looking for when I'm auditioning someone for a marching percussion or a snare line, a quad line, a bass line. Are those, just to kind of recap, because I think we're running out of time here. Dynamic contrast, your highs and your lows, and not just stick heights either, too. Yeah, that's part of it, but what is most important about music? The way it looks, the way it sounds. If you ask me, the way it sounds is more important. It's not that how it looks is irrelevant. No, I mean, you want it to look right and be pleasing to observe, but the sound is the primary component. So I try not to talk about heights as much as I talk about dynamic levels, volumes, right? So yeah, I have highs and lows here, but listen how loud my non-accented notes are when I play this. You can see it, but you don't hear much, versus I could play it higher and still get that softer sound. Right, so heights are very important, but I think they're kind of a secondary consideration to using your ears and playing with multiple volume levels when appropriate. You know, sometimes I don't want a multiple volume level. I want everything. Should be the same volume. I think that's the beauty of music too, is that it's always different. You know, the music might call for something to be just in your face and holding out, sustaining the sound, or the music might call for something that's 2 volume or 3 volume or multiple volume levels. Right. So those are some skills you're going to want to develop. Here's a little solo that's in this piece I wrote called Vortex, where there's a little snare thing in here. It has some of those skills I was talking about. That's just a little part of this piece I published on TapSpace called Vortex. And, you know, it's got some skills, some high level skill requirement to play it in time, but it's fun. It's a fun one for sure. Any last questions before we run out of time? Or I could just keep going. You know, I'll wait for Gilbert to tell me to stop. I just go and go and go until you're done. So what did we talk about? We talked about eighth notes and singles, double strokes. We talked about triple strokes, quadruple strokes, multiple accent levels, dynamics, tap and accent, or heights, right? 16th note grid, triplet grid. What if we put something even more challenging on that, like a flam drag, right? That's kind of one of the coolest rudiments, I think. Right, that's a flam diddle tap, flam diddle tap. What if we grid those and we accent the flam? Now we accent the diddle and not the flam. And then we accent the third partial, the single, and not the flam or the diddle. We have the flam drag grid. And you see my tap's got a little higher, a little louder. I'm still working to keep that as refined as it is without it. Any suggestions to develop fingers for triple quad beat? Yeah. So you're going to want to definitely incorporate this motion here, not exclusively, right? So we're not going to want to just go only finger. So I like to use a combination of all three. Well, there's more than three, but let's think about three kind of main ways to hit the drum: with arm, with wrist, and with finger. My friend Pete Sapiden has a book called Drumline Essentials, I think it's called. You should look at his book, Drumline Pete Sapiden. And he likens it to like that old video game Street Fighter 2. You know, I'm showing my age here, but this is like the heavy attack, and this is like the medium attack, and this is like the light attack, right? So we're going to get more power, but not as fast out of the arm. The wrist stroke is kind of in the middle of speed and power, and finger is for maximum speed, and you're not going to get as loud of a sound. And then the left hand is kind of, I'm going to use my forearm here for lots of power and strength. And I'm going to use my wrist for kind of in the middle. Finger is a little harder to develop on the left hand. Right? So what am I going to kind of do that? I only have 2 fingers. I could turn it over. I think I saw Dave Weckl do. I always thought that was pretty cool. He'd do like stuff like that. But all right, so fingers is kind of there for your left hand. Yeah, it's kind of a broad question how to develop it, but you know, Don't let your pinky fly off like that, like I just did. Just cut myself. And it's good to play in front of a mirror or anything that's going to give you feedback, so you can see what you're doing. So I'm just rambling here, but you know, Gilbert, I think you're muted. I don't hear you.
Thank you, in the live situation. I just let you go, man. If you remember, you're in the zone, brother.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, Roger. Always, man. Wealth of information. You know, I was thinking as I was watching your clinic right now, and this is, you know, the only other place that you can get this type of education is if you're a music major in college. And I mean, so you know, it's at that level, the knowledge that
Thank you
you
so
and
much.
the rest of the that you and the rest of the clinicians have been dispensing here, man. It's a wealth of knowledge, of gold nuggets that will definitely help us. In
I
your
wanted to
case,
thank some of the viewers too. There were some good questions too, and some really thought provoking concepts and some things that I was able to expand upon. So great questions, everybody.
yes, they did. Um, wow, Roger, thank you so much for doing this. Um, Initially, when I decided to make this event, you were one of the first clinicians, remember, that I approached, and you were one of the first ones that said, "I'm down." When? What? You know, the question wasn't, you know, m- m- will I? The question was, you know,
When
what
is
are we gonna do, and when are we gonna do it? Yeah, I remember that, and you know, um, it was a pretty neat experience personally for me, Roger, and I think I shared that back then, to see how you guys are so willing to uh to give and it's like, you know, you're like the wealthy gentleman that's just giving money away. Literally, that's what's happening here. I equal it to that, because you're teaching us how to fish. Yes.
well, you know, and I'm going to be enjoying some of the later. I was just pulling out the schedule here, and it looks like we have RG Texas RGV and Dom Famulero, Kathy Rich, Steve Gadd, Ray Lazier. So you know, I'm really excited about all the other clinicians you have coming up here. So I'll definitely be tuning in.
Yes, tomorrow I will be posting the here soon. I will be posting the schedule for tomorrow. Is the VPF 2021 after party. We didn't schedule it for today, because then the after party is stacked, guys. We would have literally been here all day long if we would have done it today. So we're gonna have Pranshu Chaturlal from India teaching you how to play tabla. We're gonna have Kara Wildman teaching you how to play Boran. We're gonna have Dorothy Taylor teaching you some rudiments and how to apply them on drum set. And another gentleman that I'm really stoked about, Brendan Buckley. He's Chiquita's drummer, and other artists as well, high in demand session drummer. So guys, it is going to get crazy and then crazier. And then the thing about this is that it's not going to come down. It's going to leave us up there, kind of like playing a 5/7 chord, but then you don't play a 1.
You got that half cadence.
Yes. Well, Roger, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate you being here. Valley Percussion Festival is your home. South Texas is your home, my friend.
Thanks so much. You know, and I'd like to give a shout out to my sponsors too: Vic Firth, Zildjian, Tama Drums, Evans Drumheads. Those are the companies that kind of make it so I can do what I do. And if you're interested, check out my drumstick here, the Vic Firth SRC. This is what I've been using all day here today. So
awesome.
Thanks so much for the invitation.
Thank you for making yourself accessible. So we try to spice things up, keep it interesting. So right now we just went from rudimental, and we're gonna do a 180, not a 360, a 180 on the dime, and we're gonna go into some orchestral playing. So what do you say we check it out, Roger?
Let's do it.
1, 2, 1, 2. I don't hear you.
Test, 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 test.
Now I can hear you.
I'm hearing like a hum or a buzz.
Can you hear my voice?
No, it sounds like a hum or a buzz.
Okay, let's get out of this then. This won't work. Let's go out of here.
He will be back. We were trying to iron out some technical issues yesterday. Here we go.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly, sir. Crystal clear.
Here. See if this is any better. Let's go to here.
Global domination. We're about to have ourselves a ham sandwich, right, sir?
Big time ham sandwich. We're talking about like 6-foot hero ham sandwich.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sir, we are humbled. We are honored. We are all of the above, checking all the boxes off to have you here. Drumming's global ambassador. What a treat. And this your clinic and your segment came about here in the late, right? So we were able to connect, and I remember your message. What do you want me to do? That was your response. It's not like, let me see, let me check my schedule. What your response was, what do you want me to do?
How can I help? Bring it on.
Yes. And ladies and gentlemen, here he is. Here he is.
Boy, Gil, thank you so much. This is great to have everyone here. And I've listened to some of the thanks. I've listened to some of the performances, and they have been absolutely fantastic to be able to experience this incredible array of talent. And in this 21st century way of being able to deliver art and performance, this really is pretty powerful when you think about it, that we have the magic of this internet connection from my studio. I live on the North Shore of Long Island.
Oh, wow.
And I'm in my studio, which is a 24 by 24 foot room that I built that is a separate room from my house. And I built this about 20 years ago, and I've been teaching using online lessons for over 25 years now. I've been doing this. I was one of the first to start doing this. So I built the studio for that reason. And I built the studio, Gil, out of cement.
Oh, okay.
So basically, people said, well, gee, you're building it out of cement. Is that because you don't want any of the people that live around you to hear you? I said, oh, absolutely not. I built it out of cement so I don't have to hear them. Listen, when I'm in this studio, I don't want to hear my neighbors out there playing or cutting their lawn. I want complete silence, because that's really where art has its best level of creativity and expression, when there is silence.
Exactly.
So I built it that way to have this, and it's just so great to come in here. And I've got my drum sets in here, I record in here, I teach in here, and it's been pretty amazing to enjoy this here. So this is fantastic. And what you're doing, Gil, by having this array of talent to be delivered these past few days has just been absolutely fantastic. And listen, all of this comes down to expression.
Yes.
Listen, what I just heard with the mallet players playing, they were fantastic. Reading and playing, and the skills of having the dynamics and just the fact of playing together as well as they did. This is socializing and the communication at its best. And that's really what art delivers. And art is really about expression. Music happens to be my language, and my voice happens to be drum set.
Yes.
So I think
like
that's
that.
kind of how I see it. And we talked about finding the you in drumming. I mean, that personality of who we are has to come out in everything that we do. Now, I know you have listeners here,
Yes.
and if anybody has any questions while we're here, Gil, by all means, just
Absolutely.
interrupt me in the course of the way. But there's so much to speak about. Now, I know I only have about 30 minutes. I'm able to go for how long now?
You can go, sir. You can go as long as you want.
Oh my gosh! Be careful what you ask for.
Well, you remember when you came and did the event live, sir? You started. We scheduled for an hour. We didn't stop you, and people didn't want to leave.
Well, I think what's great about this incredible art form is that drummers are really a unique breed of people. Drummers and percussionists, there's something about our craft that allows us to really just, get together and hang and have these kinds of festivals. And I have performed these festivals all around the world. I have performed in over 60 countries. I played, I think, every major festival in the world that is happening, and many of them more than once. And it's been very exciting to witness all these great drummers that get together and have this insatiable desire to want to learn.
Yes.
This incredible, endless desire to want to learn. We get together at these festivals. We get together at these drumming clinics, at these master classes, private lessons. Drummers want to learn, and we really want to share our craft. Listen, guitar players, and I've always said this for years, guitar players, when they play, they kind of hide what they do. They kind of, when they play, if you say to a guitar player, hey, was that a flat 5 chord change you played? They'll say, no. They kind of hide it's just kind of how they are. And we love guitar players. It's fantastic. Drummers are a whole different breed. You go to a drummer and say, hey, what was that? And they'll say, man, that was a flam paradiddle. Let me show it to you in slow motion. And they go, oh, brother, and they play. Drummers just want to share. There's an incredible, feeling that we have, which is why even, what you're doing here with this festival is absolutely incredible. Listen, the Valley Percussion Festival has been around a long, long time. You have pushed us forward, Gil, in what you're doing, and it's continuing to deliver great art to people literally all around the world now.
Thank you, sir.
This is powerful what you're doing. So to me, the concept of drumming, and so in my studio, I've got a couple of drum sets, my drum kit here, and I've got my student's kit over here. I've got, all this drum back here, this drum is kind of interesting. That's a Moeller drum.
Oh.
That's an actual drum that Sanford Moeller had. Now, Sanford Moeller, interesting enough, this is Sanford Moeller. And this picture goes back to the 1930s when Sanford Moeller literally marched from Long Island, from Queens, Long Island, where he lived, all the way up to Boston, playing a drum. It took him a couple of days. He marched because he wanted to let everyone know the physical fitness that you have to be in to play drums and how good it is to be able to continue to play and acquire high levels of physical prowess by playing drums. So Moeller was an interesting person in what he did, and just is incredible. So Jim Chapin was Moeller's best student. And Jim Chapin was an incredible teacher and educator. And Jim Chapin's book, this book, Advanced Techniques for the Modern Drummer, is a book that just totally came out in 1948 and opened up the understanding of independence, the ability of being able to play independent rhythms with each other. And that's kind of how Jim discovered this and wrote this book. And the book came out in 1948, and it is still probably the #1 selling drum set book in the world, still selling very, very well. And again, consistently since 1948. So it's been amazing to see these great, great players. So Jim Chapin lived here on Long Island where I live. So I was able to connect with Jim at a young age. And just Jim's concepts of teaching Plus, Jim was, at the time that I understood, the last living student of Sanford Augustus Moeller. Now, Moeller came over from Germany, settled upstate New York in a town near Albany. It was a town where many of the Germans, he came from Germany, many of the Germans settled there in an area called Germantown. He settled there as a young kid. He was born in the 1880s. So in 1895, Moeller wanted to kind of learn drums. So where do you go to learn drums in 1895? Well, you go to the old soldiers' homes, where many of the old soldiers were now retired, who marched and served in the Civil War, the American Civil War. That was from 1860 to 1865. So they played for 5 years. Many of them were older. Now they were retired in old soldiers' homes. And many of the old soldiers' homes were first built in the Albany area near New York, upstate New York. So Moeller finds one of these old soldiers' homes and takes lessons from several old Civil War drummers. And their technique was incredible. They had these big, high arch strokes. So when Moeller was learning, he was learning how to play powerful with these large, high strokes. So Moeller understood the concept of this whipping motion and eventually began to teach it and develop it. Well, as he became very well known, Moeller eventually ended up performing as the #1 drummer in the John Philip Sousa marching band. Now, John Philip Sousa, if you don't know who that was, do the homework. Go back and Google John Philip Sousa and go check out. He wrote many, many incredible, powerful marching songs that are still used today. And he had just one of the best marching bands. Well, Moeller was his top drummer, and Moeller ended up teaching all the other drummers to go there and play and do their thing. So it was pretty powerful to have that. So Moeller designed this drum behind me here. And this drum actually is an actual Moeller drum. And actually, it's this drum. This is the drum that Moeller played and designed at the time for the Cooperman family, which is fantastic. And this drum really is an incredible drum that is made out of, I'll come over here, that is made out of a very, very thin maple shell, wooden hoop. It's a rope drum, so of course the leather strap, you push the leather strap down, the rope puts more tension on the drum head, and that's what creates the tension for the head. So it was a pretty powerful head the way it was, and this thing is a calfskin head. So it's a real old school original Moeller and Cooperman drum. And this thing really has just such a great sound to it in the process. But here it is now with this drum. And Moeller wanted a drum that was 17 inches by 17 inches. So he wanted a round drum, but he wanted kind of like a boxy sound to this round drum. So he put this together. It's a calfskin head from a very unhappy calf. And it is also, it's got cat gut for the snare strainers in the bottom. Cat gut. Now, you got to understand, cat gut is cat intestine. The intestines of a cat. Again, a very unhappy cat. That was the original way that they made these drums. So this drum has this incredible sound of just magic the way it is. So check this out. This drum really sings. This drum's very old, and I have it in the studio as the story was told to me. This was a drum that Moeller had designed and played, and he had it with the Cooperman family for many, many years. And when Sanford Moeller died in the late 50s or the early 1960s, because Jim Chapin was a student that was continuing on with this movement of this whipping motion, the Koopman Company gave a drum like this to Jim Chapin. He was continuing on being a student of Sanford Moeller and the last living student of Sanford Moeller. So Jim had his drum for many, many years. And when Jim passed away, I was very fortunate to get a phone call from the Koopman Company that said, Dom, since you are continuing and we're one of Jim's top students, we want you to have a Moeller drum. So they sent this drum to me to have in my studio, which is just, again, part of the history and the magic of where our great art form comes from. So this motion of this whipping motion that Moeller showed was a very, very important technique. And this really was a part of learning the technique that allowed me to have a little bit more freedom in my playing in what I did. But that was one of the techniques that I had learned. The other technique was a technique that I learned from Joe Morello, who learned from the great George Lawrence Stone. Now, George Lawrence Stone, you got to understand, this book is still around and alive and well. I use this book in my teaching. You see, I've got tabs in it for certain exercises that I give students. And this book really was written in 1935. And George Lawrence Stone's father was one of his teachers, George Burt Stone. And again, they go back to the Civil War as drummers, manufacturing drums and teaching drums. George Lawrence Stone was born in the 1880s and also died in the 1960s. And his book, Stick Control, since 1935, is still the #1 selling hand technique book and foot technique book, because I went through it with my feet. So these are concepts that I think are very, very important for everyone to understand, and just allow yourself to, just learn these movements, which will give you even more freedom. The third person that I was very, very, very fortunate to learn from was a gentleman by the name of Shelly Mann. Now, Shelly Mann was one of the best students under Billy Gladstone. Joe Morello, who I learned from, was one of the best students, if not the best student, of George Lawrence Stone. So I kind of found out who were these important teachers. Billy Gladstone, who understood finger technique, George Lawrence Stone, who understood wrist technique and this rebound free stroke, and Sanford Moeller, this whipping stroke. Well, those are three movements that every drummer uses. And even if you're a mallet player, you'll use one of those techniques and you're playing. It really is just fantastic to experience. So these three people, Billy Gladstone, George Lawrence Stone, and Sanford Moeller, were fantastic. Well, I heard about them first by the great Max Roach. Max Roach, if you don't know any of the recordings of Max Roach, my gosh, step out of the cave you're living in and go research Max Roach. A brilliant, brilliant player, expressive, and just a great, great person, and a wonderful educator and professor. I heard Max Roach at the age of 18. He performed. After the performance, he explained to me if I wanted to learn that level of expression, I needed to seek out the techniques of Billy Gladstone, George Lawrence Stone, and Sanford Moeller. So I said, wow, this is incredible. I want to learn from them. Well, this was 1971. I was 18 years old. At that point, Max turned to me and said, listen, you're too late. They're dead. They all died in the 1960s. Again, Gladstone, Moeller, and George Lawrence Stone. So my next question, I think, was a question that impressed Max really, and he said to me, he said that was the right question to ask. My next question was, since those teachers are no longer here, who were their best students? That really was where I wanted to go. I wanted to learn these techniques. So Max says to me, you got to seek out Joe Morello, Jim Chapin, and Shelly Mann, and that's where I went. So it's kind of interesting to learn the stories of these people. And George Lawrence Stone, who was from the Boston area, was a brilliant, brilliant educator. He taught many, many great drummers, and all the great drummers that I ended up meeting always referred back to them. Louis Bellson mentioned all those three names. Buddy Rich mentioned all those three names. All these great, great drummers would keep on going back. Papa Joe Jones, Philly Joe Jones. They all talked about those techniques that opened them up to play. So if we're looking to find out how I can express myself to find the best, for me, the best Dom Famularo I can find, I've got to learn the skills of the techniques to understand the movement so I can create the freedom of expression, which is, for me, what it's all about. And when you take great, great players and you look at their playing, it's pretty magical when you see these great, great players perform, because what you're seeing is beautiful movement. It's like, poetry in motion. It's just so great to see this fluidity in this motion. I've got many, many videos on YouTube. You can go and check out my performing on what it was. And I'm using my laptop computer right now to get the quality of the high definition on my main computer, which allows me to have my drum sound in my computer. For some reason, we could not log on to StreamYard and make this happen. So we'll have to do it this way in the process. But the key aspect is that we have to research who we are all the time, every day of our life, and become what I like to call the constant student. Boy, the constant student, this is a pretty heavy responsibility. That if you want to learn an instrument and learn how this instrument is going to react to your as your voice, we've got to constantly learn this instrument literally up until the day we die. And that story goes back to all the great teachers that I had. Shelly Mann was practicing and learning up until the day he passed away. Joe Morello, the same way, passed away at the age of 82. Shelly Mann was only about 64 when he passed away. He was kind of young. Morello passed away at the age of 82. And again, still played great, practice pad at his home. It was incredible how great his hand sounded. And that was really, really amazing to see someone like Joe Morello continuing to practice, even though he was already the highest level of a master on his instrument. And the great Jim Chapin. Jim Chapin passed away 2 weeks shy of his 90th birthday. He was 89 years young, and he died on July 4th. It was kind of interesting because I used to go visit Jim. He was in a hospital in Fort Myers, Florida. And there was a flight from Long Island here, which was just absolutely fantastic, from Long Island Airport right into Fort Myers Airport. It was a direct flight. It was not that expensive. So I would fly down once a week and spend time with Jim and see him and see how he was doing. So I went down there and saw him. And on July 3rd, the day before he passed away, when I went there, he was practicing on a practice pad, playing absolutely fantastic. His hand sounded great, just fantastic. When I walked in, he was playing. I said, Jim, he was sitting up in a chair practicing on a pad. And the doctor had just told me that, Jim wasn't doing that well. And he was really not breathing well, and he had pneumonia. It was all these different things were compounding. I walk into the room, and Chapin's playing incredible. He's on a practice pad in the hospital room, killing it, playing his hands, high strokes. It was incredible. So I got such a kick out of that. So I went up to Jim and I said, Jim, 89 years young, what are you doing? He said, I'm practicing, and I think my left hand is getting much better. This was incredible. Well, it turned out after I spoke to him and I saw he got tired, I left that evening and flew back home, and I got a call the next day that Jim had passed away on the morning of July 4th. Now, what was poignant about that for me, which was pretty amazing, is that we called Jim the father of independence because of this book, Advanced Techniques for the Modern Drummer, Coordinated Independence as Applied to Jazz and Bebop. This was an independence book. So we used to call Jim the father of independence, of drumming independence. He was the father of independence. And ironically enough, Jim Chapin passes away on Independence Day. So when the fireworks are going off on July 4th, I always look up and I say, Jim, this one's for you. Of all that he gave us in his great talent of teaching and performing, and of course, the method books that they taught. And all these great teachers gave us so much. So the concept of us trying to find out exactly who we are as players and as educators, this really is a key aspect of what we do. So I say to you, continue learning, take lessons, seek out several different instructors, learn from them. And if there's a book that you want to learn from, maybe seek out the author of that book and find out if they'll take you through how they wrote the book. This really is a great way to learn when you can hear from the actual author of a book and they explain it and what they had interpreted. Boy, that can open up a lot of doors for creativity and the concepts of more drumming expression. Remember what I said in the start of this, art is about expression. It's all about expression, all art. Second, music is the language that we use. And third, drumming is our voice. That's the connection. You can make this happen. Go forward, keep on learning, and mostly have fun along the way.
Bravo. That was pretty intense and pretty
Gil, fantastic. This is so great to have this opportunity. Thank you so much for being able to reach some more people. I can see some people that are on here, and I think I see Nick Rich here.
Yes.
If that's Nick Rich, if that's the Nick Rich that I know, that's Buddy Rich's grandson, and his mom is Kathy Rich. Do we have Kathy and Greg Potter available to talk?
They cut my head off.
Oh my Lord.
Hi.
Greg, one of the most powerful things that you have is your hair. We can't see
I
it.
was just gonna say, most powerful thing. I spend $3,700 a month on my hair. I got a Lighten camera that cost me $17.99. I know I'm $17.99, so $18.
Well, as great as it is to see you, it's also great. Kathy, great to see you. Great to see you both.
Thank you. It's great to see. I hear you every week, but I never get to see you.
Yeah, because I've got to practice. I'm practicing right now, actually, because I've got a lesson with John. Look at that.
Okay, here.
Look at that.
It is so great to see, Kathy, that you have.
Fantastic.
Kathy, you've continued the legacy of your dad, and this is so fantastic in what you have done with the band. And Greg, you know, I've heard you with the band. It sounds fantastic. Kathy, I've heard you singing with the band. You guys have really kept this vision of your dad alive. I got the chance to meet your dad back in 1971 when I was 18 years old and know him the last 16 years of his life. And every single day in his life was magic and intense.
Absolutely. Intense is a good word. Yes.
Just tell me some of the memories that you have from going to hear your dad in all those years of going to hear him play with the band.
Well, you know, I grew up in that world, so that was the world for me. You know, hearing the band. I mean, obviously, up until the point when he formed the big band in 1966, you know, he was out on the road with, you know, whatever band, quartets, and doing jazz at the Philharmonic and being, you know, on tour all the time. Well, finally, when he formed the band in '66, I was able to then go and, you know, sit every night and watch what he did up until the day, you know, that he passed away. So to me, you know, I didn't realize it until after he was no longer with us. What an amazing experience, and what that did for me musically, being able to watch him every night, you know, never letting anybody down, always bringing 110% of himself. And, you know, that's what he instilled in me. And it's like, if you're going to do something, you do it to the best of your ability. If you're a student, you study hard. If you're a working drummer, you know, you play all kinds of music. There's not just one type. You know, that was his thing as well. And, you know, you learn your craft. And I believe you and I talked about this, you know, a little while ago, that if I could give advice to kids that are coming up now, it's learn everything you can about what it is you want to do. Bottom line. Because then nobody can say, hey, well, you don't know how to do this and you can't read and you can't do this. Learn it all.
It really is a very deep philosophy. And your dad had that philosophy. He didn't say I'm a jazz drummer. He said, I'm a drummer. Whatever it takes to play, I'll do whatever it takes.
100%. And he, you know, his philosophy was that you should be able to sit down in any situation and play. That's it. You know, don't put yourself in a pigeonhole where I'm just this or I'm just that. You know, you should be able to bring it in any situation.
And he delivered it every single show. I had the chance of being in the New York area. So whenever he was in the tri-state area, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey area, Long Island, and he played here a lot. I went there every show. I must have heard him 50 to 100 times. I can't imagine. Every single show was 110% intense, as if it was his last performance.
Absolutely. And that also was his philosophy. He said, you know, people come here to get away from their troubles, to get away from their life. They want to come and spend 2 hours of just, you know, hearing something and seeing something. So he was going to come out there and give them not only their money's worth, but an evening that you would never forget. And I still get emails from people who, you know, can remember the instant that they saw him and the day, the time, and how that changed their lives forever. You know, we don't get to see that kind of genius a lot. So when you do see it, you remember it forever.
You know, it's pretty powerful. Up on the screen right now, we've got Nick said, yes, Tom, the whole family is here, even my son, Brooklyn Rich.
Brooke.
This is fantastic.
Everyone's here.
Hey, that's
Greg is
great.
here.
If I can just get my mom and dad on the line, maybe they'll not only send me some lunch money, but maybe my mom could come over and do my laundry. So
Hey,
I'm
if anything,
well, no, I already had my dad do my hair, but yeah, if I can maybe get a few more. I can get a few more of my family members in here too. But yeah, I too live quite an intense life. I'm at 110% just keeping the house clean for Kathy, keeping her shoes lined up in the closet. You know, I mean, I've got a pretty intense life myself.
On another front,
Oh,
you know,
what's that?
Greg came from a whole different background of playing and completely turned it around, in part thanks to you. But, you know, really came from another genre of music completely and never really played jazz before. And then to sit down in the situation that he sits now is miraculous as far as I'm concerned, and has never stopped studying, has never stopped practicing, and, you know, always wants to bring it, because again, you know, you think you're under a microscope, you know, just in the world, but when you come and sit down in the Buddy Rich band, you better have something to say.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Greg, just talk about that. Just talk about that, Greg. You're playing in the band. You guys have been traveling. And again, before COVID, the band was on fire performing. Like many of the bands, you guys are in a hiatus right now until we can get the music industry back into its momentum. But Greg, what is it like? You're sitting in this band. You've got this intensity of the horns behind you. When you go hit a cymbal crash, you hear the force of this entire band behind you. How does it feel?
Yeah, it's first of all, right, what we're doing, it's all coming from nothing but pure respect for what it was. Like Kathy had said, I didn't really come up, I mean, through my study, through my schooling, be it from high school, actually grammar school, high school, and then into college, I actually did, you know, study music, and I did play with the jazz bands throughout school, because unfortunately throughout, I mean, now it seems that education with music now, you can actually get a rock, pop, you know, there is other forms of music were coming up through schooling. I did. So, I mean, my study of jazz and knowing what I was doing, like when I did come to the band, it wasn't just like I was taking from this rock field and dropped into this band. I mean, I did have some thought of it, but getting back to the respect I have for Buddy and what Buddy did for music and what Buddy did for drumming, it's just like, I just touched the surface of it. It's still to me unbelievable, because I too grew up going to see Buddy as a youngster. I mean, I got
playing in the band, hearing those guys behind you.
I'm giving a little background before I tell you, because
I want to answer the man's question. What's
I talk to him every week. Every week.
Answer the man's question.
Hey, did you ever hear those Buddy Rich bus tapes?
Greg,
You should hear the Kathy Rich car tapes or the Kathy Rich kitchen tapes. They're unbelievable.
listen, I've known Kathy longer than you have. Believe me, I know she is fantastic.
That is very true.
Okay, so yes, playing with the band is a dream come true. If you're a drummer, and no, I'm not one of those guys that, you know, dresses like Buddy and thinks I'm Buddy and plays like Buddy exactly. I'm taking this from my heart and playing with the band. And you're right. When you raise your hand to hit that cymbal, you have to I have to realize that 2/3 of the men sitting on my left have actually played with Buddy, so they know exactly where that cymbal should be hit and what it was like when the real guy hit it. So yes, the pressure is on. Well, not to mention Kathy is pretty well versed in Buddy's music too. She can tell you exactly where things should be and how they should be. So yeah, playing with the band, not only a dream come true, or a drummer's just, I mean, yeah, could you say it's a nightmare too? Yeah, it's pretty intense, you know, I mean, but specific. Yeah.
But to your credit, you've plowed through. You know, there's been criticism, there's been accolades, there's been everything, but you don't let that stop you. You always move forward through it. That's it.
Yeah,
we will continue to do this as long as we can.
And you should see Kathy's contact list on her telephone.
But what does that have to do with it?
I'm talking. You could call someone.
Oh, I could call anybody.
Like within. I mean, there's, you know, it's kind of like.
But we started this thing 8 years ago,
Yeah.
going back out on the road with the band, because that really was what Buddy wanted me to do.
I was 21 years old.
Right. I was 17. And so
I
we
was 11.
continued that thing that he really wanted us to do, aside from the memorial concerts, which have always been fantastic. Having the band out on the road was really what he wanted, having the music heard all the time, having the band guys in the band working and bringing that music to people. And I'd like to think that we've done a really good job of that.
Boy, I think Kathy and Greg, what you have done has been fantastic. The purpose of it, I talked to Buddy many times backstage, he wanted the music to continue.
Absolutely.
And when you go hear Big Swing Face, or you go to hear Groovin' Hard, when you hear these songs, they're just great songs and played with the enthusiasm, Greg, that you play with and how well you drive the band. It's complimentary to hear those tunes, and you're driving it through your perspective, but you're keeping the music alive, and it's just great to hear.
Well, that's it. I mean, people really come out, when you walk in and you see the band, and we have the music stands, and we have, the drums. The stage looks like the stage when you were going to see Buddy. And, then to come and sit in the audience and hear that music, we've had some people in tears at times.
Yeah.
Good tears.
Yeah. We've had some people in tears. What do you mean we can't get our money back? Hey, read the back of the ticket, baby. What you paid? We said Buddy Rich Big Band. Buddy's not here.
But what I want...
But that's how we went about this. There was no way Kathy was going to replace Buddy Rich. Realistically, she's had the greatest drummers throughout time sit down. Well, her father's the greatest drummer. I'm saying these men are great. We're not mentioning names or anything. I'm just saying she's had the greatest drum. But I'm saying it's more if she wants what she was looking to present, or what I want to do is you want us to play, and then you want to think of Buddy. You know what I mean? We're not trying to get out of it like, wow, did you see that Greg Potter drum clinic? Or
absolutely. Again, Greg,
go ahead.
You do it so well. You bring your personality in there. It's the music that we are so familiar with, Buddy. But what people have to understand, that it wasn't just the drumming side. Buddy was a huge celebrity. I mean, Buddy was in movies. Buddy was a great dancer. Buddy hung out with everyone from Sinatra to Mel Torme to Sammy Davis Jr., you name it. Buddy was in that celebrity status. This is a whole nother level.
Whole other thing. I mean, he really could do anything. I mean, he was the funniest person you'd ever want to know. When he would get off stage and come down front, that was my favorite part. When he would just stand there and off of the top of his head, he'd just start talking. And it was literally the funniest things you've ever heard. So Greg actually has that same weird stream of consciousness humor that he can come down and just go, and we work really well off of each other. So, it's not only entertaining, it's really funny at the end.
Well, we didn't necessarily.
But that's
go
kind of how
about
it
like that.
transpired.
Yeah,
it kind of just evolved into that.
Right, because I did get to see Buddy many times throughout. I mean, I'm 20. How old am I? 24.
Whatever.
Yeah. But I mean, I was around. I got to see Buddy from probably age. The first time I saw him, I was 10. Last time I would have been like 24, 25. So I'm saying, I got to see him. When you see somebody as a kid and then you see someone as a young adult, I mean, that you're able to take things into it, or as opposed to if you don't remember seeing him. I mean, I got to see him in different stages of my playing, and just he was right. He was so much more than just a great drummer or a great artist like that. He would come to the front of the stage. His personality filled up the room just as the drumming did.
Right.
And then same with the band. I mean, when you think about the music that the man played, he was contemporary, although he was, putting it in a form that was.
But that's what he wanted to hear. I mean, he had so many opportunities of playing with small groups and, going out on the road, recordings, doing that. My mother, why don't you stay home? Why can't you just, go in the studio and play? He's like, that's not what I do. He said, I'm a big band guy. And he said, I want to hear the horns. He said, it's exciting to me. He said, I have to be excited every time I play. And he said, so if I'm not playing something that excites me, he said, then, why bother? It's like, I want to hear that horn section. And that's really what drove him. He loved that sound. So he would take contemporary music and have arrangers arrange it for the band. So, he was so far ahead of his time with his, musical taste, that he put all that contemporary stuff in a not so contemporary setting.
It's so amazing because, of course, the unforgettable arrangement of West Side Story. I mean, Leonard Bernstein's music of the movie and this whole incredible arrangement that Buddy had, that he just played this suite of music, and he cut through those songs like a hot knife through warm butter. I mean, he just kind of flowed through the songs, but songs like Norwegian Wood, Beatles songs. I mean, he really opened up songs from different bands. But what's amazing about it, he had a consistency to his playing that is absolutely inspiring, that all of us tried, if we can get to 10 to 20% of Buddy's consistency, we can have a great performance. Buddy was on top of the game every show. I mean, every show I saw him, I always walked away saying, I don't know how he can top that. The next performance, he topped it.
Right. I don't know. I have no idea where that comes from, but, he's been doing it since he was 2 years old. So, that's a God-given ability. You can't learn that.
Yeah.
There are techniques, obviously, that you can learn, but that ability that he had can't be learned.
Yeah. It's amazing that he passed away in 1987, in April of 87.
Yeah.
And here we are in the year 2021. And all these years later, we still use Buddy as a standard in our art form. This is really a powerful message that he has left us.
Absolutely true. I mean, it's amazing to me, because I like to think that, because of the things that we've done, because of the work that I've done to make sure that he's never forgotten, to make sure that his legacy lives on, to make sure that that music is heard. We released a record last year of his last recordings live at Ronnie Scott's from 1986. And they had been sitting in a vault for 34 years. And I fought every day of those 34 years to get that released. And finally, it was released last year. And it's some of the greatest playing you'll ever hear. The band is like one laser, and Buddy, forget about it, relaxed and just, letting it come out of him as he never had before. And so to hear him at the end of his life playing better than ever, it's pretty amazing.
And that was less than
any drummer, any musician, anyone to just watch Buddy's, not watch Buddy's, but look into what, I mean, you know how it is when you see maybe a sport, an athlete, or you could actually see, like, unfortunately, the older they get, you want to watch, they slow down, or you want to watch old, watch how he played back, Buddy's playing, and Buddy's abilities, his choices. I mean, as a drummer, we're on a drum oriented event here. You know how you always have that where your mind thinks of something it wants to do, but then your body sometimes limits where it's going to go or something. I mean, mine doesn't.
I love when Dom laughs.
I work closely with Dom. Dom works on making sure my mind executes.
Yeah.
I mean, my hands.
You need to work on his mind a little more, Dom.
I do that on Tuesdays.
Tuesdays, okay. It's true.
Okay, so getting back to the great Buddy Rich, though, I mean, there was no shortage of you. You heard
you don't have to go back to the 1930s.
Right, to watch this man play. And you could hear when he makes the choices, like what he's doing while he's playing. You can tell it's going like he's direct to disc in his brain. I mean, you don't hear it because you listen to, because I happen to listen to other drummers sometimes. And you can tell, you could see where someone's at in the day or the night, or where recordings, you could, whatever. This new recording, or the last recording, because Buddy's done it throughout, but like Kathy said, this was November of 86.
He died April of 87.
Yeah, Buddy, so I mean, he didn't know it, or we didn't know it, but the man was at the end of
Yeah, at the end of it.
Yet you just listen to him. So I'm just saying, as a player and stuff, just
Just that alone is inspiring to know that,
Right.
at that time of his life,
that you could do it.
you're still out there. He's still touring. He's in Europe. This was the last tour that he did, and decided that he was going to record for 2 nights at Ronnie Scott's in London. And the result of that is something amazing. And
Yes.
everyone should hear it because of the inspiration you will get from hearing him
Yes.
at the end of his life.
What is the name of the album?
It's called Just in Time.
And there's a great arrangement of
On
that tune.
Gearbox Records. It's on Amazon. It's on all the streaming
Right.
platforms. You can get it
A
anywhere.
label from the UK
Yes.
released it. But it's just listening to Buddy play. It really is. I mean, you could say it's a drum lesson, yet it's
It just shows how far he had come in his life, and at that point
was still
was just choosing music
Yes.
that was so so perfect at that point in time, and he was so relaxed and just loving the band, because that band had been together for like 3 or 4 years with the same guys, which was unusual for him because people would come and go. So the fact that these guys have been playing together on the road for that long, they were literally like playing like one person.
Yeah,
Amazing.
when it was being mixed, the engineer at the studio at the time was pointing out sections where it actually sounded. Yeah, he couldn't tell the separation. He said it almost sounded like a keyboard pad being hit for the brass section. But now, not only would we then give the horn players the props, but remember, that's Buddy making sure that that's happening. You know what I mean? You do have to. When something great happens, of course, it's everybody, but there usually is a leader. And Buddy was that guy a band leader?
Yes.
For him to have those men.
But everybody was just in sync at that point in time. Everybody just was right where they needed to be at that moment, and that doesn't happen that often.
But because of Buddy, I mean, because those kids went on to play with other bands.
Sure.
I mean, those men went on, but man, did Buddy have these people? I mean, I guess it's like having a great coach. Why am I using sports analogies? I don't even know exactly. Oh, ESPN's on. I better go. But but it is. I mean, you do have to have I mean, I guess I could be using military.
He was also a great band leader. He was a leader.
Yes.
That's what he did. He had it exactly as he wanted it. And if you couldn't line up with that, then move along. That's all.
That's how he kept that band. That's how he kept that band on the road for as long as he did. Before we end, just give me one quick closing thoughts about your dad.
Oh wow. I think about him every single day. I'm happy and lucky that I got to spend as much time with him as I did. His talent never diminished. He was the greatest father that could ever exist. I mean, beyond. And the perception that people have of him is not the way he really was. Let's just put it that way. He was a wonderful person.
Well, I mean, I can honestly say, having known him for the last 16 years of his life, we had nothing but great laughs. Buddy was incredibly. He was very charitable. He helped many people out without letting them know that he helped them out.
Absolutely.
He had me do certain things where he said, put this money towards that person and don't tell them where it came from. So we just saw the greatness of what he was. And of course, backstage at a Buddy Rich show was all of the best celebrities and all the greatest drummers in the world. Yes. So it was amazing that, Kathy, you and Greg are continuing this legacy, and you are keeping the momentum of this incredible legend alive. For that, we thank you so much. You guys keep it going. I look forward to hearing you guys with the band. I want everyone to go out and get the music, buy the music. Get Just in Time.
The good news is, finally, we are coming back. July 25th, we're playing at Catalina's in Los Angeles. So everybody in California, come and see the band.
Fantastic. The end of July 25th in California. Fantastic.
July 25th, Catalina's on Sunset in Hollywood.
That will be fantastic. I want everyone to go out there. Let's support them all. The West Coasters, go out there. Thank you both very much. You have been fantastic to talk to again, and we will do this again sometime in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, good to see you, Dom.
Thanks, guys. Stay safe.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Do we have to hit the leave button?
Please leave.
Well,
I did.
Thanks, guys. Kathy, you look fantastic.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Listen, does it get any better than this? Steve Gadd, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Boy, Steve, this is the Valley Percussion Festival that's based out of Texas, but it's StreamYard. It brings us to the world that people can watch this on both Facebook and YouTube. And by
Right.
having the chance of being able to split the ideas of being able to have this kind of a new technology the way it is. And Steve, you've done many of these broadcasts and many of these interviews. It's been so great to have your accessibility. And even in crazy COVID, out of the brilliance of what COVID delivered us, Steve Gadd delivers us a new book that I'm still working on, Steve. It's fantastic.
You like it?
I love it. I've got the cover right here that I printed out, Gaddaments, and I work on these every day. I go down certain patterns, and the book comes out. I've already got probably about 20 or 30 students that have pre-ordered the book to get it in, to start working on it. So we're going to get this into the core of what drumming education is about.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I hope so.
Tell me about how you came about this year. You were home during COVID. How'd this all come about?
Well, I had time off that I normally don't have. And I enjoyed it for a minute, but then I started thinking that I want to keep everything in shape for when we go back out again. And I, instead of practicing on a kid, I had these sticks, I got a bunch of these Vic Firth sticks with rubber tips laying around the house, and I was playing on everything. And I got back into, I started just doing like my normal warm-ups, you know what I mean, that I would do before a show. And what happened was, because there was no show, I continued with the warm-up. And the more I continued, the more different things evolved.
Yeah.
I started remembering old things, and then stumbled upon new ways for me to do some of the old things. And I thought the stuff was fun and exciting and new to me, and I started writing it down because I wanted to share it. Drummers like to show each other,
Yeah.
things, and it took me back to the days when I was in drum corps, and when I used to love the rudiments, and I loved playing in the section, and trying to play exactly like the other guys.
Yeah.
And even back then, creatively, what happened in corps, and to this day in corps for the drum lines, they're constantly reinventing things.
Yeah.
And I've always had a place in my heart for the rudiments and section playing, where you've got to listen to the guy next to you on either side and try to make everything exact. And the camaraderie of the drum corps becomes like a team, you know what I mean? So it's it covered it filled a large hole when I was young, man. I had friends, and we hung, and we did the corps together, and then we'd go listen to other kinds of music together. But as far as with those guys, the corps was the center of our thing. I mean, that was we were so proud of it, and so proud of the drum section, and proud of the parts we came up with. It was a very creative time for me in that type of music. And it started to come back creatively when I just stayed with the rudiments and didn't get called to go, play something else for the show. I'd warm up with the rudiments and then go play a show that really might have nothing to do with the rudiments, but I still always use them to to build my technique, you know.
Well, it's amazing. You always have had, an incredible understanding of not only the rudiments and how to apply them, but you also would displace certain flams or paradiddles in certain ways that at the time when I first started hearing you play in the mid 70s, we really didn't hear that applied to drum set that way.
Right. Well, I did it, rhythmically. I would do things like that on the kit, but when I started doing it on the pad, with just my hands and just the rudiments, it was the rhythms you can take to the kit.
Yeah.
But this rudimental technique is something special in itself.
Yeah.
And if you just, try to concentrate on that part of it and get it comfortable to where it feels good, the rhythms start to make sense. The rhythms of the rudiments start to make more sense.
Yeah.
The displacement of them becomes more comfortable. And those are the kind of things, those feels are things you can take and apply to other areas, of the kit.
So when you learn the fundamental rudiments, I mean, you were just working on each individual rudiment, or were you starting to compound them and putting them together?
No. When I first learned them with my teacher, John Beck, who took me through the NARD book, National Association of Rudimental Drummers,
Yeah.
which was the 26 standard rudiments.
Right.
And then as I got into core, there were some Swiss rudiments that we started using. And then we started inverting some of the rudiments, So that was the start of this process. And what I found is that the head space that I was in when I was thinking back as a kid rudimentally, it sort of comes back, and the inquisitive things about how you could do it differently or how you could combine this with another rudiment. And you know what I'm saying? It's just one inspiration inspires a whole bunch of other questions. And if you have the time to get into it, it sucks you in. You know what I mean? I was there, and I was having fun, and I was anxious to. I have a friend, Dom Moyo.
Yeah.
We get together once a week since the pandemic, and he and his wife and Carol and I, and we swim in the pool and have something to eat together. And I was showing him these exercises as I was coming up with them and trying them out. And that was a big part of the joy, man, being able to share it with someone.
Yeah.
And play them together. And that's all, derivative from what I felt in drum corps, that camaraderie and playing exactly the same thing as the guy on either side of you. And they're trying to do that to the guy on the other side of them. And it's, these guys, even though the guys in corps aren't, they don't do it for the money. They do it for the love of playing that kind of music, and the love of being in a team. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's almost like, and these guys got to be in shape, man. These guys that are carrying around all these drums and stuff, and they're running around the field. I mean, it's a physical thing now more than it used to be. But it was when I was young, because we were carrying a drummer marching all over the place. So that was physical too, but it's even more now. But it's something that I have a place in my heart for those days and my friends, and I never forget them. And this sort of brought me back there,
Boy, it's so beautiful. You mentioned Dom Moyo. Dom Moyo, who I've known for many, many years. And when you had made the move and you were in the area where Dom was, I said, Dom, you got to meet Steve. So that connection of just Dom is a phenomenal drummer. He's a wonderful, educator when he does. He's got some great books out. So the fact that you guys get together and share these ideas is just really, really fantastic. So what kind of warm up would you do before a show?
I mean, the warm up was, I would do 1, 2, 3, 4. I would do something. I do that just to, so you don't start trying to do things that are difficult before you got the blood going. Then another one would be, so those kind of things, doubles, singles, and some paradiddles or flam taps,
Yeah.
they'll get your circulation going. I'll do that for a while. And then the next thing that comes up in the book is like some flam paradiddles, and where they're displaced. And I'll see if I.
Yeah.
Can you hear the click?
Absolutely. Perfectly well.
So, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Beautiful.
So and that particular way of displacing thing repeats with different other different other rudiments.
So what you're doing there is, just so everyone understands, you're playing a flammed paradiddle, and then you displace the flam to the second note of the paradiddle, then to the third note, the first of the double, then to the fourth note, the second right in that double. And
Right.
with that, you keep on repeating it. So that really kind of opens.
Well, the phrase ends on the right side, and then you repeat it again on the left side.
Listen.
So you're working, you're just trying to create balance and on both sides. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then as you learn these things and they get comfortable, you choose which part of it works for you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or you might be inspired by something that you read, and you come up with something on your own.
Right.
But this, I had never done this displacement thing before. I mean, I got in, I'm sure other people, probably they do it in core now. I think those guys are rudimentally, they get really advanced. I've been away from it for a while, but I love that. That drive and that spirit of these kids in the corps, and it's inspiring, man. And it just reminds me, even though it's much more advanced than it was when I was there, it just reminds me of how much fun I had, and how big a part of my life that was.
What was it like in the early days? And there was a lot of core that was going on when you were in the military, correct?
Well, no, I was. I'm sorry. What did you say about the military?
You were doing some hand core stuff when you were in the Army, right?
Well, I mean, I always practiced it.
Yeah.
I always practiced the rudiments. And Crazy Army, the thing that I recorded on with Chuck Mangione years ago, and I've since used it a lot because I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the first rudimental solos I learned in this Ridge Culver Statesman drum corps.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was just me and another snare drummer. and then we, gradually we added another and another. And back in those days, going out with 4 snares and 4 tenors and a couple of bass drums and a couple of rudimental bass drums was a lot. Now it's, they go out with many more
totally
drums than that. And, but I love that. I love that, the excitement of it. And
what do you see? What do you see with some of these cores that are out now? I mean, how it's changed so much. I mean, they are doing some things that are almost acrobatic. It's amazing what they're doing now.
I haven't had the opportunity to see a lot of the most of these corps are junior corps now, I think,
Yeah.
that are doing the spectacular stuff. I haven't seen a lot of the new ones. I've seen the Top Secret Drumline. Have you seen them?
I have seen them. That's incredible.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of what's going on in corps is that type of thing, man. Where, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not just marching. It's like they're moving in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
They're running. You know, sometimes I know from talking to friends in corps that sometimes they're running. They're doing different things with their body. It's like a workout now.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But I haven't really seen that. I've heard. I know they take everything on the field. They got xylophones, marimbas, timpani, you know, concert bass drums, vibraphones. It's like it's pretty amazing. It wasn't like that when I was young. It was just it was simpler, and I liked that. I liked how it was just. I liked the simplicity of when I was doing it. I liked the sound of the drums. The drums they sounded more like, you know, they were lower pitched.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that because it had a real powerful sound. You know, you'd hear them, you know, coming down the street in a parade or marching across the field or coming towards you. You know, the drum line was powerful to me.
Yeah.
It was very powerful, and I loved it. But now that the stuff is so much more technical,
Yeah.
you know, they tune the drums up higher, and it's like a different ball game. Challenging in other ways, but still challenging and still creative and still innovative in terms of how these guys, what they're doing with the rudiments and cross stickings and tricks. I mean, I'd love to be able to do those. You know, they all, you know, we're drummers. When we see someone do something that makes us smile, we want to be able to do it. I want to be able to do it and show you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's getting too tricky for me now, man.
Well, what's interesting is you mentioned a book like you mentioned NARD. NARD was the old National Association of Rudimental Drum, you know, rudiments, and NARD, National Association of Rudimental Drummers. And that book that came out that I had gone through was a collection of many different artists. George Lawrence Stone was in there, Bill Ludwig. There were many, many great artists, Jay Burns Moore, that donated pieces. And they really had those first 13 and eventually the 26 rudiments that were the core rudiments of what they had in that book.
Yeah, yeah, and I was very proud to go through that book. I was a kid, and John Beck, my teacher, took me through it. And at the end, you'd get, if you got all the rudiments, like he'd get me an NARD card.
Yeah.
I'd be a member of the National Association of Rudimental Drummers. I carried that card in my wallet. I might still have it. I don't even know.
There's a picture I have here that is the picture. This is the book, the NARD book, the original NARD book. And there was a photo in here that I want to see if I can show this here. This is a photo, not sure if I can get this up here, of the original NARD people that had put this together. And there's George Lawrence Stone in there. There is William Ludwig I. And these were the original starters of the National Association of Rudimental Drummers. This was the picture of these guys.
Fantastic.
Of what they did. And that was in 1934. So they got together, a bunch of drummers, and said, listen, let's put some ideas together and just, the book is still around. And then we kind of evolved into Will Coxon. That was a whole nother concept of playing, the All-American drummer.
Yeah, Will Coxon, then John S. Pratt.
The Pratt book also, yeah.
Rudimental things. You know, yeah, all of that stuff. And I liked the rudimental way of writing because at least those books, there was a clarity about it.
Yeah.
A consistency. And that's another thing that we did in my book. I have it like we wanted to get the the notation to look good. So can you see it?
Yes, this is like a copyist did this. This is hand copied.
Yeah, it's like the aside from trying to have the book look balanced, you know, and not intimidating.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted it to be as easy to read and as clear as, because music should help you. And a lot of times what's going on today with the computerized stuff, in my opinion, it gets in the way. You know what I mean? It's like if you look away and look back, you can't find your place.
That's right.
There's nothing. It just looks like a page of one bar after another. You know, the form isn't really clear.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to give some clarity, because music's supposed to help.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to make it more complicated. You know.
Well, it's kind of interesting when I had seen some of the early pages of the book, it just looks so beautiful the way it's handwritten, like it would be done as we would see many of the early books, like Nard and Wilcoxon, and these books that, you know, before there was the computer technology to do this. But you really kind of put this together in a way that is so magical, and I want to make sure they understand. Hudson Music is who's putting the book out, and everyone can go to www.hudsonmusic.com. and track the book down and get some early copies of it and sign up for it, which is absolutely fantastic. And one of my former students, Joe Bergamini, was involved with the editing of the program. And Joe was just so excited to work with you, Steve, because the creativity that you offered, and then putting Joe through it. And then when Joe said, listen, you got to try some of these patterns, I said, this is typical GAD. It's so musical. Everyone was so musical. You could just kind of hear it flowing.
They're all written in 2 or 4 bar phrases.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I think phrasing is very, when you practice, I think thinking in phrases is important, because that's the musicality of it. You know what I mean? It's like, if you can, you know, play something really hard technically, but you can't play it in a certain amount of bars and then repeat it.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you're not getting as much out of what you're doing as you should, because, you know, thinking in phrases is very important for a lot of the music that we play. There's some music that's different, but for the most part, for drummers and you know, the phrasing is a good thing to be aware of. It's an important thing to be aware of.
You have such an incredible way of being able to even, you know, look at a piece of music, and you kind of, it seems like you just kind of like overview it, and you take it all in, and you find the form, you find the feel of the song, and then you just express yourself through that form. It just comes up so natural and so beautiful, Steve.
And you know, when back, you know, in the 70s or 80s, you know, when I was in the Army, I was in a band in the Army, field band. It was like a Buddy Rich, Woody Herman kind of band.
Wow.
And there were good players. A lot of guys, you know, all of them came out of college and didn't want to go to Vietnam. So it was a good band, and there were good arrangers, and they hand wrote the charts.
Yeah.
So I could look at a 3 or 4 page chart before we played it, and just be able to know, but you know, what the form was. You know, well, we're going to repeat from here back to here, then we go all the way over here. You could tell it was clear.
Yeah.
And then you hear the music, and it, you know, it almost, what you saw made sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, what I think is the way to do it is to go in, especially with a lot of these computerized things, is to have the person play the music, either a demo or perform it, you know, singing or at the piano or wherever, and look at the music. But listen to the thing first while you're looking,
right.
and don't try to discuss anything before you've done that, because until you've heard it, there's nothing to talk about.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if you start talking about it first, you start creating problems for yourself, because you start thinking you know what you're going to do before you even heard it, and then what you try and do doesn't work, and it's like you opened up a can of worms that you shouldn't have opened, you know?
What was it like when you were getting charts from Chick Corea? And Chick, you rest his soul, just this incredible force of nature of what he was. But you would, if you looked at music like on the Leprechaun album to Mad Hatter to Friends to My Spanish Heart to even Three Quartets, when you got the music, how did Chick write the stuff out?
No, he didn't. I read off his piano score.
Oh, interesting.
And his piano score was written, was written beautifully. Rhythmically, it was great.
Yeah.
And I would, just, come up with a drum part based off of the music. He would, allow me to do that. And then if he had any suggestions, for one section or another, we'd talk about it. But I'll tell you, when I went back and played with Chick, for reunion stuff,
yeah,
and he had the original music had been, put into the computer and so it wouldn't get lost and stuff. The arrangements weren't the same in the computer that they were when they were handwritten.
Interesting.
They were harder for me to read.
Interesting.
It was just, I was looking forward to looking at those parts, because they gave me so much information, just being able to look at the piano things and the melodies. And so, it just made me realize how important that aspect of music and reading music is. When people take care of copying something, it makes a lot of difference for the musicians that are playing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it seems like that those piano scores really kind of gives you the full bigger picture of what's happening, and then you can pull out of that what you feel drums can complement.
Right. That's the way it was, and especially for I say that with the one album that comes to mind is Leprechaun, because we did that live, in the studio with horns and strings, and we just rehearsed, and the day in the session, and then recorded it. So we did a few days, rehearsed the stuff and recorded it. It wasn't like we rehearsed it outside and then went and did it.
Right.
Chick was great at knowing how to do that, rehearse a band and getting people to play his music the way he wanted it.
It's amazing. That album is still one of my favorite albums. And I say there are certain tunes on there like Night Sprite, which are just classic, the way you phrase the drums, where the drums become such an integral part of the music. Even that, when I think of the song Looking at the World, and there was a part, what they called it the robust part of the tune, where you literally with your toms went up the scale and down the scale with Chick and just blended into the music that created and lifted such an exciting part of delivering that music, which is just so brilliant at many different levels.
It was great for me. I mean, his music was, when I played like Leprechaun, especially, I had been right out of school, right out of the Army, and had been, in the Army, we read every day. So, my chops were good, and I was able to apply everything that I had learned in my whole journey from beginning to there.
Yeah.
It brought it all together. You know what I mean? The reading, his rhythms, and how he wrote them out were so a lot of things that I had heard Elvin do.
Yeah.
Because Chick he loved the drums, so his rhythms were very drumistic.
Yeah.
And drumistic in a way where he emulated the guys that he loved, like Elvin and Roy and Tony, and these rhythms would come out. They'd remind me of these people, man. It was so it was a great day for me.
Well, that was the beautiful sounds of three quartets, which was just an absolutely wonderful, tribute to that time of the jazz players. And you guys just delivered that music just so great. Beautiful stuff. I want to go back to Gadamants for a moment, because in Gadamants, you really have allowed the drumming community to step into the 21st century, because you've given them all of your years of experience, of your rudimental foundation, the foundation of who Steve Gadd is, and you're delivering that now to us in this book that is crystal clear and exciting and very different than any other drumming book that I've ever seen in my life. So it's exciting to have the patterns that can be played and learned on a pad or like you play with the sticks on a coffee table, but they can easily be delivered to drum set.
Yeah, the grooves. I mean, it's like, the feels and the accents. You might not want to play them exactly as rudimentally as you did on the pad, but the music, the musicality of the phrases and the accents are things that might simulate you and inspire you to take to the kit, And I haven't done it because I haven't really been practicing I've been just doing the pad thing. But there'll probably be things that I'll want to take to the kit, So we'll see.
I'm already going through some exercise that how I'm applying it to the kit. I know certain players like Steve Smith has already posted some stuff that he's put on. So there are many drummers out there that are now starting to step into the world of Steve Gadd, apply them in their own way in the drum set. So you have, as you always do, Steve, you continue to open up minds and you continue to move this art form forward as you always do.
Well, thanks, man. I hope I do. I'd like to think, I'd like to do that. That would be great if that happened. So thank you.
It's really happy. So Gadamants, everybody go out there, hudsonmusic.com, and Rob Wallace, who's just another brilliant drummer and mover and shaker in the drumming industry, and how he's put together so many great products at hudsonmusic.com. And he brings in these people like a young Joe Bergamino to go in there and put his mind together, and you put this book together in such a way. So listen, after we're done with this, I'm going to go back to the book and practice some more and do some more wood shedding.
All right, man. Thanks, Dom.
Thank you so much, Steve. Beautiful to see you. Send my best to the family, and we'll touch base soon. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks,
you, sir.
Joe.
Thank you so much. It's a huge honor.
Thank you.
Give our best to your family and your wife, please.
I will. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Wow, Dom,
Fantastic.
I mean,
Incredible, right? Incredible to have
Yes.
that level of brilliance of a man who has been doing it for all of his life and just continues to inspire and create. And he just keeps on going. At 76 years young, Steve is at the top of his game. He just finished an album just last month with Eric Clapton in England with Nathan East on bass, and flew back and came back in, and now he's going out again. So listen, during COVID, when there was a lockdown, is just when the time when Steve was working on those ideas.
Yes.
And quickly, when it opened up, Steve was back on the road and hitting it and doing it. So
Yes.
I would say we are very fortunate, in all of us that are hearing my voice right now, we are very fortunate to be living in the time of a Steve Gadd. Do the research, do the homework, understand Gadd. I mean, did people realize they were living in the time of someone like Mozart? I think some people did and some people didn't. And some people regretted that they didn't pay more attention when Mozart was around.
Yes.
So I say to all of you, go out there and do your homework. Do the research on Steve Gadd. Pick up as many recordings as you can. Pick up his material. And for sure, pick up Gadamants. It's going to open you up tenfold to where you are right now. Fantastic.
Yes.
Gil.
Yes, and I think that it's important to say that we are fortunate to have yes, people like Steve Gadd, but people like you, sir, that have the vision and the perception and the understanding to be able to highlight this for us, because we're all students, and just like we're in different levels, musically, chop wise, technique wise, it's the same thing mentally. We don't know who's who and who's what and who are the ones you want to watch. It's like you at that point when you asked him, well, who are his best teachers?
Yeah.
Well, we have you to do that for us.
That's nice. That's nice. Well, I think, Gil, we all have responsibility. And if we can rise to the level of our responsibility and utilize what we do best. Listen, I'm still trying to be the best Dom Famularo I can. I work on
Yes.
it every day, not only as a drummer and a musician, but also as a human. And as we
Yes.
try and raise the quality of who we are, it is people like Steve Gadd that I look up to, and he's been a mentor and a friend at such great levels. So we have the responsibility to share all this information. There's great material out there. And what you're doing now by keeping the Valley Percussion Festival alive and well and doing this, even the delivering of this next artist who I have known for years, who is completely out of his mind. He lost his mind many, many years ago, and he is just an incredible drummer. He's a dear friend. He's playing with the band Korn, and I have seen Ray in many, many different situations, and in all these situations, he just absolutely is a seasoned pro, and he just totally plays 100% of his energy and effort all the time.
Yes. Yes. I need to hush and let that be the intro. Here we go.
What is up, everyone? I'm Ray Luzier from Korn. Welcome to the Valley Percussion Festival 2021. I am so honored and privileged to be here amongst all of my drumming brothers. It's amazing. This is the third Saturday, I believe, and it's just so much education. We're all on such different levels and different wavelengths in music, and it's just a beautiful thing. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of my experiences, and the great thing about drumming and just music in general, when you pick up, sticks or a guitar, or you start singing or any instrument out there, we're all on different stages of our journey. There's different ways you can look at it. Some of us want to just play on weekends and we have a regular job during the week. Some of us, like myself, I took upon myself to say at a very young age that I'm going to do this till the day I die. And that's a pretty big oath to pledge, at such a young age. But I didn't care if I was rich, poor, a ginormous band or an unknown band, if I was beating on street buckets, or if I was playing a stadium. I knew that I was going to play drums till the day I died. So music's such a beautiful thing. It's all around us. It's everywhere. And those of us that chose it for a profession, we sunk our lives into it. We put the hard work and the, blood, sweat, and tears into it. And some people just want to do it as a, kind of a side thing, and that's okay too. I was a music teacher at Musicians Institute for about a decade back in the, I started in probably 92. And I had such an amazing experience there because I started realizing that, wow, everyone's on different levels, and some people take it more serious than others, and we all do our own thing, and that's what I think is so important. You got to be an individual. I get so sick of hearing people say, like, you check this guy out on YouTube, he plays 800 mile an hour, and I'm like, that's awesome. It's impressive for a couple seconds to me, but I'd rather get moved by someone's emotion and their groove and their feel. That's me personally. Some people get blown away by how fast people can play, and that's awesome. But you got to look at, like, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to make a career of this? Do you want to impress your friends? What do you want to do? So I'm always asking myself, I told myself at a very young age, I want to make a living doing this. So, and I've done it all. I've played a bar mitzvah and I've played a stadium and everything in between. And I was okay with that. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the hard work. It takes a lot of practicing. I don't care who you like out there that's out in the big stages. They put their time in there. They put the effort and energy into their perfecting their craft. So when you see something online, which, as everyone knows, media consumes our lives these days. Every day we have a device in our hand and we're on laptops, and we can't escape it. So. And there's a beauty about that. It's weird because I come from an older generation where we didn't have those kind of things, but now everything's instantly, if not sooner. You can put your video online and someone in Germany's watching it. That's phenomenal, but don't lose focus of why you picked these things up in the first place. Don't lose focus of, like, that first feeling you got when you sat down and you played your guitar, your drums, or the first time you sang into a microphone. There's a feeling that comes over you. You're like, whoa, I can do this, and I feel alive. I don't care where you're at, what level you're on, that never lose that passion, never lose that feeling you first had. That's super, super important. So this first song I'm going to perform for you is from the latest Korn record called The Nothing. And I'm very, very proud of this record. We put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this. Nick Raskulinix produced it. And what I love about the song I'm going to play right now, You'll Never Find Me, is there's a lot of really, it's pretty simple, but there's some cool, interesting grooves going on. I do a marching kind of beat in the verses, and I go into a 16-note hi-hat pattern. The choruses are wide open on the crash, and it's very articulated parts on the kick drum. So I'm very proud of it. Check it out.
Life is degrading and silently making me spun out inside my own head. Spewing and craving, this darkness is leading me down the road to my own death. I can't take this, I might break it, watch it all fall down. So humiliating, I fall to its craving. It feeds on the doubt in my heart. Sinking and fading, our feelings unsaving to fix what I tore all apart. I can't take this, I might break it, watch it all fall down. So I can't fake the truth you hide. Take the pain inside. I'm lost. You'll never find me. 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 I'm lost. So I can't fake the truth you hide. Take the pain inside. I'm lost. You'll never find me. I'm lost. You'll never find me. I'm lost. You'll never find me.
So one thing I want you guys to, if anything you get out of my clinic, I want you guys to really look inside yourself, find your individuality. It's okay to look up to other drummers and other people that inspire you. I do it all the time. I'm still a fan of many, many people out there. I still love to go to concerts and love to see, just watch stuff on YouTube, and I love it. Embrace it all, soak it in, build your vocabulary, but find yourself in there. No bigger compliment have I ever gotten than when someone has heard a recording that I've done or heard me on the radio and said, I knew it was you playing drums in the first 2 bars. That blows me away because we're drummers, we don't have that voice or we don't have that guitar tone. A lot of us can play the same groove, but when someone knows it's you for something you've done, there's no better high than that. So that's why I'm saying really focus in on what you're all about, play from the heart, always play with passion, give it all you got. If you see me play a disco gig, and I've done many of them with wigs on, and I've done, all over the gamut, I put everything I have into that gig. I don't care if there's 12 people out there, 12,000 or 80,000. I play like it's my last gig. That's just what I've always done. That's what I've always sworn by. Because to me, I've played some, small gigs in Los Angeles where there's 12 people there. Well, guess what? One of the times where I was playing a really small gig, one of the guys at the bar happened to be Rob Cavallo from Warner Brothers Records, and he was checking out my original band, and we were giving it all we got, and he actually turned around and said, I want to sign you guys, and that blew me away. So never underestimate, who's out there, who might be watching you, networking and the music biz part of it is such a huge, important part about this. I mean, it's one thing to get your craft down. It's one thing to go, hey, I'm going to, I used to think myself, I'm going to lock myself in my drum lab and play 6 to 8 hours a day, and I'm going to get so good that no one will turn me down. And that wasn't the way to look at it. It was good that I was in there shedding all day, but I didn't realize that you needed to go out to network, and you needed to go to a bar, and you needed to go see this band and hand out a business card back then. Now everything's on media, but you really need to be around people that if you have something to say and you have something to offer, someone will recognize you. You just have to get out there and be recognized or get in front of the people that are going to take you to the next level. So this next song is also off the latest Korn record called The Nothing, and this is a vinyl I'm holding. Please buy records, kids. It really helps support the music industry out there. It really does. And you get cool things like this. So this song's called Harder off this record. Now, a lot of people will come up to me and they're like, I don't understand. I see you play. Sometimes you're left hand on the hi-hat, sometimes you're right. What are you? And I'm like, well, I'm kind of ambidextrous. I started playing left-handed, but I am a right-handed player, and I write right-handed. So it's just whatever comfortable. When people buy your record, they don't really care if you started with your left foot, if your right foot, if you played the hi-hat with your right hand. How does it sound? How does it feel? Is it moving me? Is the emotion there? So that's what I always, people always say, you're so strange the way you play. So this song is a good example of that, because in the verses, you'll notice I'm on the left hand on the hi-hat, and then when I'm doing ghost notes, I'll switch over. So I had some fun with this. There's some blast beats towards the end and some really cool double bass stuff. So enjoy.
tear my joy out. Their shadows start to cast down. Inside I start to lash out. Tell me who I am. I've done all I can. Tell me why my life keeps getting harder. Tell me what to feel. This shit can't be real. Tell me why my life keeps getting They are in my head now. Exposed, they tear my joy out. Their shadow starts to cast down. Inside I start to lash out. Tell me who I am. I've done all I can. Tell me why my life keeps getting harder. Tell me what to feel. This shit can't be real. Tell me why my life keeps getting harder.
So a lot of people ask me, like, what do I do backstage? What do I do before a session to warm up, to get my arms ready to go and prepare for battle? If you see me play with Korn, you know, you see sticks flying in the air. I'm hitting very hard, very aggressive. But if you notice my technique, I'm very loose with my sticks, you know. I think it's really important to prevent carpal tunnel and any kind of injuries you might have. You know, I've been bashing my brains out for a very long time, and knock on everything, I haven't had any injuries. So, but that comes from proper technique. So when you're playing on a practice pad, or, you know, when you're in your practice lab on a kit, really be conscious of, like, stick heights, you know, how clean you're playing. Clean playing is everything to me. You can always play sloppy, right? So really pronounce everything. If you're playing a flam, mean that flam. If you're playing a double stroke roll, really get that double out, you know, pronounce it so it can be heard. This first exercise I'm going to share with you is a very simple one, but it's something I've been doing for decades, and it's like a religious thing I have to do now before a show. If I don't do this, my brain tells me, like, you didn't do something, you're not prepared. So this is something I do, and it's basically a triplet exercise. You can count them 1 in, 2 in, or 1 ta-ta, however you count triplets. Basically, you're putting the accent on the 1, the second ta, and then the third ta. So tap foot, you know, tap your right foot, tap your left foot. If you're on the kit, keep, you know, 8-note triplets pulse with your hi-hat, and keep quarter notes on your kick. So basically it goes like this. Well, make sure you use a metronome. You can use, you know, these days on your iPhone, you can download, there's probably 9 or 10 metronome apps you can put on your phone. So that's what I usually do. And I start at maybe like 70, 75 BPMs, and I'll take it up to 120, 130. Speed is not important. You know, the cleanliness of your playing is utmost important. So let's start. I don't have a metronome right now. I'm just going to tap my foot, start like. Now we go to the left hand. So you notice I'm playing very high accent and low notes. You don't want to play Or you really nail that accent and leave the other notes low. Why? Because it makes your playing more rounded. When you're on the kit and you're doing a funk groove or something, you have more dynamics now. You have a range of high notes and low notes. When you're hitting, there's all this space, right, for high notes. A lot happens in that space before you strike the drum or the cymbal. So really watch your accents, you know. So now we can do some doubles with that. Where we originally put the accent, put a double and let it bounce. So you get two notes for the one stroke. So and again, with your doubles, really make sure. So when you're playing doubles, of course, the two notes. If you're playing three notes, whatever you're playing, make sure it's nice and clean pronounced, like we were talking about before. Buzz roll on a drum pad. There you go. So this next one is called Elevation. I was in this kind of a proggy band back in the day called the Hideous Sun Demons. We had a song called Elevation, and basically you're climbing numbers. You go 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, the whole way up to 8, and then you go back to the beginning. So alternating, it's going to sound like this: 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So on and so forth, different speeds. And again, leave those notes way down and really nail those accents. And another very, very simple one that you've probably heard a million times, but it's super effective, is the good old 16th note. So you're taking each permutation, the 1, the E, the N, and the So again, super, get your posture on, make sure you're not, if you're right-handed, don't make sure your right's not over, stepping your left. That's one of my biggest pet peeves, when you hear someone do a roll and they're going, get those strokes up. Play a single, I'm kind of looking at that imaginary line up here and making sure all my notes are up there. So when you're doing this exercise, start off going 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and, right? Same. Now, if you put doubles on those, exact same exercise. Right? By doing this and breaking them down like that, your double stroke rolls will become way clean, right? There's nothing worse than, we've all done it. I know I have. Get that left hand up. If you're left hand, get that right hand up. Use a small. So to me, attitude is everything. You have to have the right attitude going into things. And I don't care what level it's on, how small or how big it is. Your self-attitude has everything to do whether those people you're in that room with want to be around you. They want to take you on tour. They want you to, perform and write music with them. It's such a huge element. And a lot of people forget that. There's a lot of people out there that have lost gigs, and they're virtuosos on their instrument, but they've lost gigs because they've maybe been tardy to rehearsals, or they came unprepared, or they just had a bad attitude and thought that they were at a certain level when it really doesn't matter. So when you're in a band situation, you're communicating with these people on a musical level, but also as humans. You have to have the right attitude when you're walking into the room. You can't walk in there going, "Oh, I had the worst day ever," and now let's get to playing. You don't want to ever, you want to kind of bury that a little bit, because you're there to perform the best you possibly can. And when you're a live situation, you're all trying to be, as one, as a unit, as a force, because those audience people will know that. They'll know whether, you're not on your game that night. We all have bad nights, trust me, I've had mine. But there's a thing about the entertainment business, and that's what this is. You're in the entertainment business. that you're an entertainer on stage. You have to throw down. You know, there's been times where I've been on a plane to Japan and have slept 2 hours and I'm getting thrown on stage, and those people that paid money, good money, to see your concert, they don't care whether, you know, you've had sleep or not. Give them the best show you got. So I'm always making sure my attitude is healthy and happy when I'm in any kind of situation. I don't care where you're at, studio, live, show up with a game face, always be leaning forward and get ready to take on whatever's thrown in front of you, you know. So my next subject would be auditions, and that ties in with the attitude, punctuality, you know, showing up with your game face. You know, if you're in line, and I've done this many times in Los Angeles, if you're in line with 50, 75, 100 drummers, what do you have that those other guys don't have, or girls, right? I don't know. You have no idea. I've been in so many situations where I have a pair of sticks and you're playing that same 5-piece kit that everybody else has played, and you're playing those 3 songs that everyone's played all day. What's going to separate you? You know, I've lost gigs because I didn't have dreadlocks. I was the wrong color. My biceps weren't big enough. You'd be surprised at the gigs I got turned away from in Los Angeles. I should write a book just on that. But so when you show up, I don't care what it's for, come prepared or overly prepared. And what do I mean by overly prepared? Perfect example. When I got the Jake E. Lee gig, he played for Ozzy Osbourne in the band called Badlands. In '94 was my first official tour. I was the same exact thing. Like I think there was close to 500 drummers or something auditioning, and I narrowed down to 100. And the same thing. I'm like, man, what do I have? What's this guy? So I'm a huge Ozzy Osbourne fan and Badlands. So I did some homework and research, and I went back and learned the entire Ozzy catalog and Badlands, everything that Jake ever played on, to be prepared in case maybe we could play one of those songs. So I was number, I think, 25 that day out of 25 drummers, and they were so burnt and they were tired and they're leaning against the amps, and they said, all right, what's your name? All right, what do you got? And I said, I'd really like to play, you know, Soul Stealer off the Badlands record. And they're like, yeah, let's just stick to the 3 demo songs. And I said, yeah, but, and then the bass player stood up and he kind of started figuring out Soul Stealer, and Jake goes, you're playing that wrong. It's here, and it's, next thing you know, there's a different energy in the room. Everyone kind of stood up and we're playing, and he's like, wait, what are we doing? Next thing you know, I'm counting off the song, and it totally changed the vibe of the room. There was a whole different energy. People were like, ah. And then the other drummers got PO'd outside because they're like, hey, why is he getting to play that? I didn't force it. I just simply brought it up. Like, hey, I love this song. I appreciate it. Why don't we jam on that? So lo and behold, they told everyone to go home. I got the gig. So that led to 2.5 years of my first touring ever. So as a lot of people know in the music business, a lot of things are short-lived out there, especially in the rock and roll game. Bands' careers are 5-7 years. If you have a couple hits, you might go to 10. The bigger bands out there, you know, obviously I'm in the band Korn. This is their 26th year. It's my 14th year with the band, which is insane to me because you never know when it's going to end. No one's got a crystal ball. So you always want to keep a good reputation for yourself out there. You always want to be like, hey, let's call that guy. He's easy to work with. He gets stuff done. He's prepared. He's honest. There's no BS. That's huge, because the last thing, I don't care how great you are on your instrument, the last thing you want is, oh man, he's so amazing, but God, I can't stand to be in the same room with him. And man, he doesn't shower on the tour bus. And you'd be surprised that stuff happens. So that's super, super important. You know, once you have that one gig, you network. You give the sound guy, you give the monitor guy, the bass tech, you start giving your number out to everyone, because if someone liked you out there on that crew and on the audience that saw you, you will get a call for another gig. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is to put in the hours. You got to put in the work. It takes tons of time. You know, I see people watching YouTube and for hours and hours and hours. You know, I'm guilty too on airplanes and stuff that I do, but you get off of that. You know, it's okay to watch something to inspire you, to get inspired and go, wow, this makes me want to go practice. Then go sit in your lab or sit in your drum room, whatever you have to do for hours at a time. But you got to put in the work, you know. And us as drummers, you know, we're timekeepers, and it takes time to build time. Your internal clock doesn't just happen. You know, it took me years and years. I remember when I went to Musicians Institute, the staff was amazing. You know, I had Ralph Humphrey, Joe Porcaro, Richie Garcia, Efren Toro. The staff was insane. And I thought I was kind of hot stuff coming off the farm in PA. And little did I know, my timing was really bad. And I had to get a metronome, and that was a rude awakening for me because I'm like, yeah, but did you hear that lick? I was playing 64th notes, and they didn't care. They're like, if you want a job, your timing has to be happening. Most of the drummers out there, you're gonna get a gig playing 4 on the floor at 120 BPMs and not moving time. All the fancy fills, the flashy licks, and all that. That's cool. But let's face it, to get a drumming gig out there, your timing has to be together. So this next song is from my side band called KXM, and it features George Lynch on guitar from Dokken and Lynch Mob, and Doug Pinnick from the amazing underrated band King's X, one of my favorite bands of all time. So we just have fun with this project. Our whole thing is we do 12 or 13 songs in a 12 or 13 day period. We write one song a day, and by the evening time, I'm tracking drums for the record, and we move on. We don't overthink anything, so we have a lot of fun with this. There's no producers breathing down our backs. It's 100% us. So this next song called Faith is a Room, I really had fun. It's a straight ahead song, 4 on the floor with a crash, but you'll notice in the verses, it's kind of like almost a linear kind of pattern down the toms in between the snare and hi-hat. And I just had a lot of fun doing it. So check this out. Faith is a Room. So your timing definitely has to be together, but I can't emphasize enough, and I'll tell you till I'm blue in the face, you got to put in the hours, you got to put in the work and the sweat. Go see shows, you know, go listen to a ton of music. If you're a rock fan, listen to jazz, listen to classical, listen to reggae, listen to different stuff. It broadens your vocabulary so much mentally, and then try to play it physically. Because let's face it, if you want to be a session guy out there, if you get, you know, you don't want to be pigeonholed into, oh, he's the rock guy, oh, he's that guy, you know. So the more you know, obviously, the better you're going to be, and the broader your vocabulary is, the more gigs you're going to get. So, and that's just a fact. I mean, the more you know, of course, I'm a rock metalhead, you know, that's my favorite thing. That's what I get called to do. You know, I don't get many jazz calls. I don't get many, you know, timpani calls, but I love that stuff and I embrace it. I listen to constantly, you know, I listen to many different styles all the time. If you look at my playlist, it's not, you know, Metallica and Slipknot. It's classical. I got Bach and Beethoven, and I got Ziggy Marley, and then I got, you know, classic rock, and I got, you know, jazz. I got Chick Corea. I got, you name it, it's in there because it helps out whatever style you're favored in. So this next song is also off Korn the Nothing, and it's called Idiosyncrasy, and it's one of my favorite songs off of there. It's kind of reminiscent of like kind of early Pantera-ish kind of riffs. You use a lot of bell, heavy bell, the shoulder stick on there. I use a lot of the gong drum, which I love. The gong drum just has some massive attack about it. I love pummeling this thing live in an arena. You know, you hit that thing over 15,000 people, and it's just a big punch in the gut. It's awesome. So this song is called Idiosyncrasy. Check it out. Hey, thanks a lot for joining me tonight. I hope you learned something. I had fun doing this. Thanks to all the staff that put this on. They worked very hard to bring this to you at home or on your laptop, wherever you're watching it. Remember, you got to put the work in. You got to put the hard hours in and be a good person. You know, everything comes back to who you are as an individual. Remember, that's what you want to be known for, your individuality. So you got to work hard. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you on the road this summer. Take care. Great playing, great words of wisdom. Ray Luzier, fantastic, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Out of this world. What a way to wrap up Valley Percussion Festival 2021. Wow, it's mind blown. Mind blown.
You know, Gil, it really is amazing to witness. I've known Ray for many, many years, and he just seems to be getting better and better. He's playing great. And I want everyone to understand his words of wisdom. When he speaks about putting in the hard work, it is obvious he has put in the hard work. Just his facility, his playing of all different styles. Ray reads very well. He understands music and theory. This guy's a well-rounded musician. So when you hear him with Korn, he's not just pegged into only playing with Korn. Ray can do anything.
Yes, absolutely. He keeps sharing his, well, he did in the clinic as well as, you know, how when he went to study, you know, he was exposed to so much stuff, and he has shared some of those, you know, thoughts with us. And, you know, he says you're just stretched and forced to do so many things, and you grow because of it.
It really is. And I had the fortunate opportunity. There's a YouTube channel called The Sessions Panel, and I've had a chance to interview hundreds of people. I've interviewed Ray Luzier. I've interviewed Kathy Rich. I've interviewed Greg Potter, and I've interviewed Steve Gadd. So just these last several artists that we have, I want everyone to go to The Sessions Panel on YouTube. If you can, subscribe to the channel, listen to all the great artist stories that are there and all the interviews, but listen carefully to Steve Gadd and Kathy Rich and Greg Potter and Ray Luzier. You're going to hear some great words of wisdom, as you have heard today from Valley Percussion Festival. Gil, you've done a great job with this year. You've presented some great artists, and you've given many, many great people the opportunity to be heard worldwide for all the great viewers that you've had here.
Yes, thank you, and again, reiterating, I sound like a busted tape recorder. You know, the event is a success because of you guys, because of people came here and tune in and are gonna see the replays because of you guys. You guys are the real rock stars, or in the words of today's generation, the real MVPs, right? Yes, that is beautiful, sir. Dom, thank you so much for being willing and jumping, literally jumping at the opportunity to partake. To me, it was overwhelming when I saw that message. What do you want me to do? That was it. And then you gave me a call and started to set up everything. I remember. Yes.
Well, it was great. And the intensity of all of our business and our lives and the intensity of what we've all been through, especially with COVID, it's so great to have someone like yourself, Gilbert, that is willing to put the time into it, to organize it. And all we did was kind of fuel your energy. So you were the spark that made it happen. And as drummers, my gosh, we live our lives doing what we do. We have fun. We share it. This is incredible. All of you that are listening, go out there and practice, play, do your research of Steve Gadd, do your research of Buddy Rich and Ray Luzier, all these great, great players, and just keep pushing this art form forward. Gilbert, thanks so much for your effort and your energy and your team that is there. Valley Percussion Festival lives, and it lives loud and clear.
Thank you. Really quick, a quick announcement on tomorrow's Valley Day of Percussion, Valley Percussion Festival. I'm sorry, it's habit, right? We did it for 29 years. Robert, I'm sure he's listening to me, so It's gonna stay. For tomorrow's Valley Percussion Festival 2021 after party, it's going to start at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. and we're gonna kick it off with Pranshu Chatur Lal. I really hope that I pronounced his name. He's gonna be speaking about instruments of India, drums of India, and then we're gonna have some performances going on as well. And then we're gonna go into a Boran clinic by Kara Wildman. Then we're going to have also Brendan Buckley. He is a drummer for Shakira.
Brendan's a great player, dear friend, and phenomenal. Listen to Brendan; he'll inspire you for sure.
Yes, an amazing clinic on flow, how to flow on the drum set. It's going to blow your mind. And then Dorothea Taylor.
Oh,
wow.
She is she's the queen of drumming. She is out there doing it and sharing ideas, and she is just a sweet soul, and she's just got some great ideas to share, and she really is a great leader in the drumming community. Dorothea, man, you're going to have some fun with her. It's fantastic.
Yes, Dom, thank you so much again. You made it. You were able to tie everything in. We had from beginning, from day one, recapping Joe Moore III, Julie Davila, Kevin Donka, Jim Riley,
Yeah,
Ralph Nader, Nick Worth, Gustavo Miranda, Rich Redmond, Mark Eichenberger, Ronnie Rios, James Christian, Daniel Glass, Mark Ford, Edward Freytag, John Wooten, Senija Komlanovich, Norm Bergeron, Dave DeCenso, oh my gosh, Mark Ramirez, today, Corey Doran, Pete Lockett, Tim Jennis, Ron Schermerhorn, Seven Antonopoulos, Roger Carter, Kathy Rich and Greg Potter, Steve Gadd, Ray Luzier, and the global drumming ambassador, Dom Famolaro.
You did it. Everyone that is there, I know most everyone personally, and you've got a great team of people. This is drumming inspiration at its best. We're in the 21st century, and Valley Percussion Festival is keeping it all going and moving it forward. Gil, thank you so much. You've done fantastic.
Thank you so much, sir. And people, thank you for watching. Share the replay. And you will be hearing more from Valley Percussion Festival and Valley Perfects Productions here in the very near future. Stay tuned to our socials. We're not saying goodbye. We're saying see you soon.
Absolutely, man. Gil, thanks so much. Bye-bye.